Meet Bai, the big boss of an elite squad of awakened hunters known as the Divine Corps. In a world brimming with magic, it was only a matter of time before demons and their nasty dungeons started popping up. And that, of course, triggered the awakening of superpowered folks like Bai. His crew? They're the absolute alphas of their entire organization. Right now, they're on a little field trip to send a certain demon king packing. His name? Belelfagor. We're talking a triple S-class baddie who juggles all 5 elements. Basically, a total monster to fight. And get this, Bai and his warriors got their mission briefing directly from the gods themselves. So, as they step into the demon's lair, Bai bellows, letting his squad know it's showtime. This marks the 100th high-level demonic dungeon this elite team has decided to crash. Rolling with him are the usual suspects, Ling Yu and Han Xiaoling, and of course, Lucian. This wasn't just any raid. Its projected difficulty earned it an L-class designation, a full-blown purge operation. Yeah, the absolute highest rank possible. But you know what? The team is practically buzzing with excitement, all because they've been promised a sweet, sweet vacation after they punt Belelfagor into oblivion. Moving like a single destructive unit, the team unleashes a storm of power on the swarming demons. Bai is at the forefront, and they carve through the demonic fodder with terrifying speed and precision. But what else would you expect? Every single member of the Divine Corps is an L-rank warrior. After just a few minutes of flawless teamwork, the team has already cleared the dungeon and taken out the big boss, Belelfagor, himself. The rest of the crew is already celebrating how much of a cakewalk it was, but Lucian, the party pooper, isn't buying it. He mutters that it was way too easy for an L-rank mission, and surprisingly, Bai agrees with him. The intel said the Demon King was supposed to have 5 elements and some kind of hidden trump card. Just as he's trying to figure out what's off, Ling Yu sneaks up and wraps her arms around him from behind. She's already asking if he's buying dinner. Completely over her shenanigans, he shoves her off, announcing to everyone that dinner's on him at their usual joint. Han just shakes his head, unable to believe their captain is fumbling the bag with Ling Yu so hard. But in that exact moment, they realize someone's missing, the final member of their squad. The guy hadn't lifted a finger the entire fight and had completely vanished. Not that anyone's too worried. After all, the mission's over, right? Then, suddenly, he materializes right behind them, his hand raised. And with a smirk, he declares the real purge operation has just begun. In the next instant, a projectile slams directly into Han's head. It's an instant kill. Absolute shock freezes the team as they stare at Han's body hitting the floor. The top of his skull is just gone. A gruesome spray painting, the dungeon floor red. With the team still completely stunned, the backstabber drops a bombshell. This little purge party was ordered by God himself. That's when Bai notices he can't even twitch a muscle, and the traitor gleefully reveals they've been chowing down on breakfast sprinkled with paralytic powder for the past month. The turncoat then unleashes his divine skill, instantly trapping the rest of the crew. He calls it Forbidden Vines, and yeah, it pretty much locks them down completely. He starts monologuing about how this was his sacred mission, and, hey, a guy needs time to prepare for a proper massacre. Through their shock, Bai and the others demand to know why he'd turn on them. The traitor just shrugs, saying it's God's will to eliminate all the L-class warriors. To prove his point, he cranks up the pressure on the vines, making them all scream in pure agony. They're coughing up blood and fading fast, still begging to know why their so-called friend did this. Bai desperately argues that the Divine Corps never once crossed a line that would warrant a death sentence. They played by the book, followed every single rule. So why did they have to die? The traitor just scoffs, telling them God doesn't need a reason to squash a few ants. He then casually strolls over to Bai, tightening the vines around his neck for a bit of fun, and then he punches a hole straight through his chest. Bai's mind shatters, unable to accept that a man he saw as family did this. This team had been inseparable for 10 long years. They were more than just colleagues. The traitor just cackles at Bai, mocking him for being so unbelievably naive. He sneers that they were never family, not even close. From his very first day in the Divine Corps, he was an undercover agent working for the gods. Bai and his team were just pawns in a bigger game, specimens to be studied before disposal, and this guy was a master actor. With that final, soul-crushing truth, whatever fight Bai and his team had left in them vanishes, and they collapse. The traitor stands over them, and just for kicks, finishes Bai off with a point-blank shot to the head. And so, on May 22nd, 2125, Bai and his entire squad of L-class warriors were brutally executed. As their bodies lie cooling on the floor, the traitor dusts off his hands and heads off to plan his vacation. But just as Bei's consciousness is about to wink out for good, he hears a voice out of nowhere, demanding they make a deal. He's suddenly awake, finding himself wrapped in chains in a place he's never seen before. Standing before him is some seriously shady guy in a suit with an aura of pure dread. Bai looks closer and his jaw drops. It's Belelfagor, the Demon King himself. Bai's brain short-circuits. How is this guy even alive? Belelfagor just gives him a smug grin, teasing, "You seriously think a high-ranking Demon King would kick the bucket that easily?" They're trapped in his soul domain, a place where the whole kingdom is literally his HP bar. Already over the Demon King's monologue, Bai basically tells him to cut the crap and get to the point. Picking up on Bai's "I'm about to lose it" vibe, the Demon King whips out a crazy proposal. Turns out, Belelfagor's trump card is a little something called life regression. He offers to yeet Bai straight back into the past, giving him a do-over on his messed up life. After a painful flashback of his team getting wiped out, Bai jumps on that offer faster than a cat on a laser pointer. He's absolutely seething, vowing to hunt down the backstabber and the so-called gods who pulled the strings. The Demon King is all smiles, and as a little bonus prize for playing, he throws in another gift for Bai, the heart of Belelfagor himself. Bai, suspicious as heck, asks the Demon King what his angle is, but gets zapped away before he can get a straight answer. The next thing he knows, he opens his eyes, and he's back in a classroom, with his teacher, Miss Huang, screaming in his face. Bai realizes he's time-traveled back, a whole 20 years to the year 21,105. This was back in his middle school days at the National Awakened Academy, way before he even got his powers. To say Bai is shocked that this whole back-to-the-past thing actually worked is an understatement. Meanwhile, the teacher is laying into him for snoozing in her class, of all places, the one right before his big awakening ceremony. For his crime of napping, the teacher sentences him to the classic stand in the back of the room punishment. Still trying to process everything, he shuffles to the back, gawking at faces he hasn't laid eyes on in almost 20 years. Up front, the teacher drones on with her lesson, explaining the 5 main elemental powers. You've got your lightning, flower, cloud, nuclear, and stellar. She makes it clear, a person only gets one element, no mulligans. She then uses herself as a prime example, flexing that she has the super rare cloud element. She continues, explaining that elements are sorted into 3 categories depending on how they sync up with your body: combat, support, and special. She lays it out that every decent team is built with all 5 elements, each playing a different part. Take the school's own guild team, for instance, which is rocking a stellar mage, a cloud warrior, a nuclear bard, and a lightning assassin. The teacher then gives them a little pep talk, calling them a rare bunch and hyping up Awakening Day as the biggest day of their entire lives. Apparently, there are almost 100 known awakened professions, ranked from the bottom of the barrel dust tier to the god tier celestial, with Ember and Abyss ranks somewhere in the middle. She reminds the students they get exactly one shot at this whole awakening thing, and hammers home the point that whatever status they pull is going to define the rest of their lives. And with that cheerful thought, class is dismissed. Alright, it's Judgment Day for the students as they get ready for the awakening. Our boy Bai bumps into a classmate he's dubbed 4 Eyes, for obvious reasons, who's currently getting shaken down by some annoying punk. This chump is Hongzhang Shang, a self-proclaimed stellar assassin who's only an E rank. For some reason, this makes him Mr. Popular with his crew. Bai isn't shocked. Hong's always been a professional bully. But before Hong can take it any further with 4 Eyes, the teacher makes a dramatic entrance. She lays down the law, telling Hong that school isn't his personal shakedown racket. Hong, with all the arrogance in the world, tries to flip the script, claiming 4 Eyes crashed into him, and he was just collecting compensation. He then has the nerve to tell the teacher that the only thing saving her from getting fired is the fact that she's good-looking. After dropping that bombshell, he and his goons decide to bounce, shoving Bai aside like he's a piece of trash. Bai doesn't even flinch. His attention is on the teacher checking up on poor 4 Eyes. Turns out, Teacher Huang is a classic tsundere, all tough on the outside, but she genuinely cares for her students. Bai knows this because he remembers Huang helping him out in his previous life right after he awakened. Just then, an alert comes through. It's time for her class to enter the awakening chamber. Like a worried mom, she tells her students to keep their heads straight to avoid any accidents. You see, in this world, there are 2 ways to awaken your powers. First, there's the natural awakening, the kind that loser Hong had. which, by the way, is the entire source of his massive ego. A natural awakening is a rare lottery win, usually hitting people with insane physical talent during a super emotional moment. The second method is the artificial one, where anyone with potential gets tossed into the awakening chamber. This high-tech box is the masterpiece of some seriously brilliant scientists. Once you're inside, your emotions and adrenaline get cranked up to 1,000. This whole process is designed to force activate any dormant powers, and you only get one shot at it. For most people, this is their only ticket out of a dead-end life. Some of Bai's classmates already went through the chamber before him and actually landed some decent professions. One of them even awakened with the blue tier profession, which is a solid amber class. Finally, it's Bai's turn. The teacher tells him to stay focused, and with a simple nod, he steps inside the chamber. In his past life, Bai's big awakening was as an E-rank nuclear warrior, which is a dust tier class, widely considered the most useless profession in existence. That pathetic awakening basically put a giant bully me sign on his back for years, and it wasn't until he hit the legendary S rank that he finally awakened the most absurdly rare type. Stepping into the chamber, Bai was fully expecting to roll another garbage tier profession like always. But then, to his shock, the system completely glitched out. The chamber went wild, detecting 5 whole elements instead of the usual, boring one. Bai felt like his insides were being microwaved as the system flashed the words, "Infinite Awakening." The system then let him know that he had his pick of the litter, able to choose any starting class from any of the 5 elemental types. Bai then found out he could level up the other classes once his first one was completely maxed out. He was absolutely floored when he realized he'd been given a skill called Elemental Accumulation. This meant he could pick new classes in the future, from the lowly dust rank all the way to the god tier celestial rank, and keep all their perks. On top of all that, Bai also had a shot at unlocking a hidden rank that was even above celestial. It finally clicked for him that this insane power-up was all thanks to the Demon King's parting gift, the unheard-of ability of Infinite Awakenings, a power that literally shouldn't even exist. The system then warned that all other elemental options would disappear once he chose his first class. So, after some careful consideration, Bai made his choice. He strolled outside to his teacher, who was practically buzzing to hear what amazing power he got. With a straight face, Bai told Huang the devastating news that he'd awakened as a nuclear warrior, a class known for being the absolute worst of the worst in the green tier. Huang was clearly taken aback, but like the good teacher she was, she tried to cheer him up, saying, "Hey, some total legends have come out of the green class." She told Bai not to lose hope, but he just humbly told her there was no need to console him. Of course, Hong overheard this and, right on cue, decided to butt in, immediately starting to trash-talk Bai. He sneered that the teacher was just selling him false hope and that reality was a whole lot crueler. Hong made sure to remind Bai that being in the dust class officially put him at the very bottom of the food chain. Hong just kept on, with his insufferable, arrogant attitude, telling Bai that the gods pick the winners, and the losers are just there to be stepped on. The second he mentioned the gods, something inside Bai snapped, but he kept a perfect poker face as Hong continued spewing his garbage. He gloated that Bai would be stuck in the back of the classroom from now on, because that's just how the world works. Apparently, the celestial ranks got front row seats, then came the abyss and ember ranks, and finally, crammed in the back, were the dust rank nobodies. Dust rank warriors were considered absolute trash and could only ever team up with other low-tier scrubs. Hong chimes in that no amount of grinding will ever let Bai change his destined to be lame fate. He calls it a complete waste of time, then gets right up in Bai's personal space to run his mouth. But Bai's patience meter has just hit 0. He snatches the coffee from Hong's hand and redecorates his face with it. Hong is completely frozen, his brain failing to compute what the heck just happened. He furiously demands to know what Bai is playing at, and Bai just deadpans that his voice is nothing but static. Bai's comeback and coffee-yeeting antics are the last straw, and Hong decides it's time to teach this punk a lesson. He winds up and throws a haymaker right at Bai's face. Hang tries to stop him, but it's a lost cause. Little does Hong know, Bai was practically waiting for this. Just before impact, he materializes a sword of pure light and casually blocks the attack. He then parries with a flick of his wrist, launching Hong across the room and blowing everyone's minds. Hong slams into the ground hard, while Bai strikes a pose that screams, "I wasn't even trying." Spitting up blood, Hong tries to process how he just got totally clowned. The other students watching can't believe their eyes. As it turns out, Bai picking the nuclear warrior class was a calculated move, because he's already a grandmaster at it. This was his main class in a past life, so he knows every single exploit and OP combo. Hong staggers to his feet, arrogantly insisting that Bai just got a lucky shot. He boasts that he's an abyss ranker, on a whole other level than a scrub like Bai, but Hang's sharp eyes tell her that luck had nothing to do with it. She realizes Bai just pulled off a top-tier movement skill, one that's supposed to be exclusive to the warrior class. Hang knows that specific parry skill doesn't just block an attack, it reflects the full force right back at the attacker. She's absolutely gobsmacked to see Bai pull it off so effortlessly, since it's a move her own master couldn't nail after 10 years of hardcore training. Hang is even more confused about how Bai, who literally just awakened, is already fighting with the experience of a seasoned pro. While Hang is lost in her thoughts, Hong summons a short sword, ready for a real takedown. Hong is absolutely livid now, promising to humiliate Bai in front of everyone. Bai just stands there, cool as a cucumber, and reveals that he picked this supposedly bottom-tier class on purpose. He knows that in the near future, all his haters will see how broken the dust class truly is, but by that point, it'll be far too late. The students are buzzing with excitement as the two get ready to throw down again. However, there's one small catch. Throwing down with powers is strictly forbidden at the academy. So get this, Hong's dad is some big-shot official, and his uncle is the actual dean of the school. Meanwhile, Bai's a complete nobody, with zero connections, which means he's got everything on the line here. Four Eyes is totally freaking out, convinced he'll get expelled if he throws down with Hong, so he begs the teacher for help. Wasting no time, the teacher jumps right into action, stepping between them, yelling for them to cut it out. But Hong is absolutely livid and dead set on getting revenge for that public humiliation. Hong starts talking mad trash, swearing he'll beat Bai to a pulp even if he gets on his knees and begs for mercy. In his mind, he's some kind of god-tier talent, while Bai is just a bottom-of-the-barrel loser. Even the teacher knows Hong isn't just bluffing. The raw difference in their stats is just insane. See, Hong is an abyss rank warrior, which gives him a whopping 200% boost to all his attributes. Abyss ranks are on a whole other level because their base stats are double a dust ranks right from the get-go, plus they can actually grow while dust ranks are stuck in newbie land forever. Absolutely nobody in the crowd, not even Four Eyes, thinks Bai has a snowball's chance in hell. They're all just waiting for him to get completely steamrolled. Four Eyes totally agrees that Hong is a piece of work, but he's gotten this far by playing the clueless idiot to stay out of trouble. He figures dodging guys like Hong is the only real survival strategy, cause a direct fight will only get you wrecked. And just as soon as he's finished sizing up his prey, Hong bolts straight for him. The teacher panics, screaming for Bai to watch his back. She figures Bai's gonna try and pull off that same parry move again, but she knows it's a long shot since that skill is a massive stamina drain. Plus, with the insane speed Hong's closing in at, the parry would be completely useless anyway. Even Hong is smirking, totally sure he's got this in the bag. Bai, on the other hand, just cracks a grin. He has zero intention of dodging. Turns out, he's got another ace up his sleeve. The very instant Hong gets within striking distance, he pops his flash blink skill. It's a crazy teleport-like move that lets the user literally phase through obstacles. The whole thing is over in less than a blink, and before Hong can even process what happened, Bai has already tagged him right in a critical spot. Hong hacks up a mouthful of blood, desperately trying to figure out how in the world Bai got behind him. He smashes his fist into the ground, fuming with humiliation, as the other students just stare in absolute shock. Not a single person watching even caught a glimpse of what Bai just pulled off. All they saw was Hong suddenly eating dirt. Even the teacher was completely clueless about what just went down. But there was one person. The class president, Chien, actually saw the whole thing. Chien's brain just short-circuited. He realized Bai had maxed out a basic warrior skill and was just styling on them with it. In the meantime, the other students are all whispering, trying to figure out what's so broken about Hong. Over on the status screen, Bai clocks that one of his stats ticked up for schooling an opponent, but he's totally unimpressed with the reward, thinking the points are basically pocket lint. He knows the real EXP grind comes from hunting demons, and he plans on farming them as soon as possible. Still sprawled out on the floor, Hong's ego refuses to tap out. He yells for Bai not to bounce, screaming that this ain't over. He fumbles for his knife and goes for a cheap shot from behind, but before he can land the sucker punch, a voice booms out, telling them to cut it out. It's the school dean, Hong Lin, who just so happens to be Hong's uncle. Lin immediately starts roasting Hong, telling him he's already made a big enough fool of himself. and ordering the students to go home. The word home suddenly hits a reset button in Bei's head. Oh yeah, he actually has one of those. He'd completely forgotten, what with the whole being reborn into the past thing, and his parents having already passed in his last timeline. He suddenly remembers a tragedy that went down on this very day, and before the dean can even start a lecture, he just freaking bolts. Even Hong is stunned, watching Bai peace out like his life depends on it. The dean is left speechless for a second, then turns to Hang and tells her to get her student on a leash. He promises to just pretend this whole embarrassing mess never happened, and Hang gratefully thanks him. Later, Hong scurries after his uncle to his office, trying to make excuses. He whines that Bai just got lucky, but his uncle absolutely explodes on him, yelling that Bai didn't just beat him, he utterly humiliated him. From a distance, Leon had seen Bai use the flash blink. He explains to Hong that in that one split second, Bai pinpointed his weakest spot and hit it, completely shutting him down. The dean is furious, because even with all his experience, he can't pull off the flash skill with that kind of god-tier precision. The dean basically says, Hong's fight with Bai was like a pro gamer toying with a total noob for a highlight reel, making it crystal clear to his nephew that Bai is on a whole other level. Meanwhile, Bai is sprinting like a madman, thinking about how critical it is that he gets home right now. He tears through the streets and gets to the apartment building in record time, remembering exactly how this scenario went to hell in his past life. He's ready to rewrite the script, even if it means a game over. Bai bursts through the door to find his dad watching TV and his mom doing the dishes. He's sporting a thunderous look on his face as he storms in, and his dad is just casually surprised he's back from school so early. Bai completely blanks his old man and makes a beeline for his mom, with tears welling up in his eyes. He chokes out how relieved he is that his mother is okay. His mom, who can't speak, uses sign language to tell Bai she whipped up his favorite hot and sour noodles. But Bai, the little troll, immediately shuts it down, saying he's not in a noodle mood today. He then hits her with a special request. He's craving pickled fish. Bai's mom tries to put up a fight, but ultimately, she caves to her son's epic-level stubbornness. She agrees to grab the pickled fish, and Bai offers to tag along, but his dad finally pipes up and stops him. He grumbles that his mother can go alone, and then grills Bai about why he came back without even a hello. The old man gets to his feet, grabs his booze, and bluntly asks Bai how the big awakening ceremony went. He's practically drooling, waiting to hear what legendary skill his son unlocked. Turns out, Bai's father, Ling Shang, is a fairly high-level electric warrior class, which is a pretty big deal. This makes him a certified menace. Bai tells his dad he didn't awaken because the whole thing dragged on for way too long. His father immediately calls him out, demanding to know why he ditched the ceremony early if he hadn't awakened. He starts ranting about how disappointed he was with his buddy's kid's pathetic awakening class. And of course, he expects his own flesh and blood to pop off with nothing less than the Abyss rank. Ling boasts that he himself awakened with the Abyss rank and has poured his life savings into raising his son. Seething with a nasty aura, he snarls, demanding to know what Bai actually awakened with. Swallowed by that intimidating pressure, Bai doubles down on the lie that he hasn't awakened yet. This just cranks his father's rage meter to the max, earning Bai a glass bottle to the dome. The moment he learns Bai awakened with the trash tier dust rank, he absolutely loses it and starts screaming his head off. See, Ling is a hot-headed dude who can't manage his anger. In Bai's first playthrough of life, his father's massive ego and shame over the dust rank quickly turned into a violent rampage. He went to strike Bai, but his mother jumped in to shield him, just like she always did. As a weak little kid, all Bai could do was watch his father beat his mother for a solid hour. The beatdown was so brutal that a nasty blow to her head left her mentally scarred for life. In his past life, he could only cry while his mom took the hits. But now, in round 2, he's determined to rewrite the script. Still, he knows he doesn't have the stats to challenge his old man just yet. A C-rank Abyss-class warrior is a high-level boss, and Bai's gonna need some serious time to grind. The cheesy tactics he used to outplay Hong would be a complete joke against this guy. His father is on a whole other tier, a veteran player with real combat experience. Bai knows. With a heavy heart, he can't even scratch him. For now. His dad goes full villain mode, grabbing him by the hair and dropping the classic, "I wish you were never born" debuff. Bai immediately realizes this situation has officially gone sideways. Turns out, his father camped the spawn point just for him, and isn't logging off until he's satisfied. Knowing his dad's aggressive attack patterns, he'd wanted his mom, the support character, safely out of the raid zone. Bai Yi's glad he managed that much. But just as he's patting himself on the back, a critical hit lands smack on his head. The party's about to get wiped, because someone else just entered the instance. It's his mother, the very NPC he tried to keep out of the boss's area of effect attack. His mom is absolutely stunned to see Ling Shang using their son's head for target practice while he's down. She'd speed run her errands to bring her hungry boy some food, which explains the terrible timing of her return. Bai Yi is freaking out seeing her, wondering if this is a rerun of a quest he failed before. And right on cue, Ling switches aggro to the squishiest target in the room. Cue the traumatic flashback. We see Bai Yi chilling in a high-security cell. In his previous playthrough, he was the legendary first player to rank up from a green to a platinum tier. Because of this epic achievement, his cellmate is totally baffled, asking why a top-tier player like him ended up on death row. Bai Yi's only comment was that he deserved a permaban because his mom's HP hit 0 on his watch. He was sentenced to be deleted for sending his father to the graveyard in revenge for what went down with his mother. And now, back in the present, it looks like history is trying to load the same tragic event. While Ling Shang continues his berserker rage, Bai Yi's mother rushes over to cast a heal on her son. Bai Yi knows he's built different. A normal person's health bar would have been zeroed out by that punch. His mother tries to pull him up, using herself as a shield against his enraged father. Ling continues his villainous monologue, telling his wife he was actually thrilled when she was pregnant. Since none of his siblings could roll a male heir, he figured he was the chosen one, destined to restore the family guild's prestige. But he's disgusted with the final result. His son, his great hope, awakened with the absolute worst class, dust rank. Ling screams at his wife that Bai Yi is hard stuck because his class is literal trash tier. He then blames the whole mess on her inferior genes. Ling Shen finally snaps and raises his hand to hit her, but Bai Yi is not about to let that happen. He activates Flash Blink, zipping past his mom to perfectly parry his father's attack. Ling Shang gets knocked back, and Bai Yi cracks a heroic smile. His mother, however, knows this just triggered the boss's second phase. Ling Shang staggers to his feet and struts arrogantly toward his son, looking like he's about to reveal his final form, fully intending to turn him into a human punching bag. Bai Yi, ever the optimist, thinks a parry might actually work here, but before he can even think parry, his dad's fist smashes right through his sword and connects squarely with his face. Bai Yi spits out some blood, having a bitter, oh crap moment, as the massive power gap becomes painfully obvious. He barely has time to gasp for air before another knuckle sandwich is served. He manages to get his hands up to block, but the sheer force of the blow still rattles his ribcage, something fierce. Ling winds up for another haymaker, ready to teach his son a lesson about defying dear old dad. The nerve of this kid. Bai Yi sees the freight train of a punch hurtling towards him, but his body just won't move. All he can do is turtle up and protect his head. As the fist connects, Ling whispers a sweet nothing in his ear, that he deserves to kick the bucket for awakening a trash-tier class. And yet, our boy Bai Yi is still on his feet, refusing to let this be a repeat of every other beatdown. The fact that Bai Yi is still standing just cranks Ling Shang's rage-o-meter to 11. He starts running his mouth, mocking him like, "Oh, you think you're hot stuff now that you've awakened, huh?" Losing his cool completely, Ling grabs the nearest chair, ready for some furniture-based violence. Bai Yi's mom clings to him as they prepare for impact. But right at that moment, a powerful voice from outside bellows for them to open the door. Ling Shen is totally bummed out by this party crasher. Meanwhile, Bai Yi's mother is just holding her son, breathing a sigh of relief. Little do they know, this interruption was no surprise to Bai Yi. He called in the cavalry. Ling Shang puffs out his chest, trying to look all big and bad as he yanks the door open. But that tough guy act evaporates the second he sees who's on his doorstep. Two seriously intimidating dudes are just standing there, asking what took him so long. Turns out, these guys are investigators from the inspectorate. We've got Liang and Chen Jinwu. Liang is the big shot, a fiery A-rank deputy captain, while Chen Jinwu is a more modest C-rank. Ling Shang is practically shaking in his boots, stammering as he asks what in the world they're doing at his humble abode. Liang just flashes a picture of a wanted man right in his face, a guy named Snow. He asks Ling Shang if he's seen this fella hanging around. Apparently, the office got an anonymous tip that Snow was spotted in the building, so now they're doing a full-on, door-to-door sweep. You can practically see the relief wash over Ling Shang's face, realizing they aren't here for his little domestic dispute. He slaps on a fake smile and tells them he hasn't seen anyone named Snow. He even adds that since Snow is basically a celebrity criminal on TV all the time, he'd totally call it in if he spotted him. But just then, Liang's eyes land on Bai, who looks like he just went 10 rounds with a truck, and asks Ling what happened. Thinking fast, Ling Shen cooks up a lame story about his son being a klutz and taking a tumble on a grocery run. He even tries to get all chummy, patting Liang on the shoulder and telling him not to sweat the small stuff. But before he can even finish his sentence, Bai decides it's his turn to talk, calling his dad out for being a total liar. Bai straight up tells them his old man is the one who messed him up, which explains why he's looking like a Jackson Pollock painting. Rewind 18 minutes, Bai had used the apartment's payphone to tip off the cops, whispering about seeing some snow in the building. He was banking on them taking any news about that kind of powder very seriously, but he was still shocked they showed up so fast. He's just glad they did, because it bought him the perfect amount of time. Ling, of course, tries to laugh off his son's accusations, claiming he wouldn't have the guts to rough up his own kid, but Bai hits back with the unvarnished truth. He gives the cops the full rundown, a wine bottle to the head and a stool to the arm. Bai doesn't stop there, pointing to each and every mark his father left on him, basically telling the officers to feel free to inspect the evidence themselves. Then, the absolute mad lad takes it up a notch by quoting the law back to them, spelling out that any awakener who can't control their temper and harm civilians gets a 15-day stay at the awakener prison. The cops are completely floored, totally impressed that this kid knows the rulebook better than they do. Ling Shan shoots his son a look that could kill. With the epic legal smackdown Bai just delivered, the head officer has no choice but to arrest Ling Shang. The officers immediately restrain him, and when he lunges for his son, they tell him to cool his jets or they'll get physical. Ling gets dragged, kicking and screaming from the apartment, but not before threatening to end his son the moment he's out. Bai just ignores him and slams the door shut. As soon as they're alone, Bai's mom rushes over to give him a tearful hug. Bai is just relieved he managed to get his mom out of that mess. However, he only has 15 days to get strong enough, and he promises his mother Ling will never hurt her again. During the commotion, Bai had slyly swiped the key to his father's safe. He knows his dad's secret to jumping from a lowly E rank to a C rank is stashed in there. A little while later, Bai casually strolls over to the safe and unlocks it. The contents were a secret Bai only learned in his past life after his father's death. He opens it and pulls out a seriously nasty-looking blade. Bai's new plan is to use this blade to start farming the demon caves. Since grinding in the demon caves is the only path to a class upgrade, he knows he's got to dive into that labyrinth. There's just one small hiccup. The demon caves are controlled by the gods, and you have to be in a guild to get an entry pass. The only ones Bai can access for now are the kiddie pool versions managed by his school. Plus, he's got an ace up his sleeve, a hidden demon cave he knows about from his past life. It's go time. So, Bai makes a beeline for this secret spot, ready to speedrun his way past everyone on the server. Meanwhile, back in the inspectorate's little timeout room, a couple of officers are chatting about how the snow sighting was a total false alarm. They're not even mad. They're always game to check out any snow-related shenanigans. While they're shooting the breeze, Ling tries to grease their palms to get himself sprung. Lei just watches, completely grossed out by Ling's pathetic display. I mean, the guy was a guild member, for crying out loud. The officers basically tell him that adding bribery to his rap sheet is only going to make things a whole lot worse. They strongly suggest he just sit tight for the night before his express trip to Awakener prison in the morning. Ling's rage is now 100% focused on his son, and since Bai knows his dad's little vacation lasts for 15 days, he's prepping to grind the demon caves for some serious EXP. Demon caves are basically instanced dungeons from a parallel world, with portals that just pop up out of thin air. The moment one of these is discovered, guilds usually swoop in and claim it, since they're loaded with demonic beasts and precious ores, making them the absolute best spots for awakeners to level up. But you're supposed to roll in with a party since these places are no joke. The one Bai's about to hit wasn't even discovered for another 5 years in his old timeline. Talk about insider info. A standard F-rank cave requires a party of 3 E-rank warriors, while an E-rank cave needs a 5-person team composed of 3 E-rank and 2 D-rank warriors. Bai is feeling pretty confident that this secret dungeon he's about to challenge is just a breezy F-rank. These demon caves have a reputation for being death traps, but since Bai is fresh out of options, he's got to solo this dungeon. He knows better than anyone why he needs to get OP, and fast. Armed with that sweet weapon he jacked from his old man's safe, he waltzes right into the demon cave. The whole place is a winter wonderland of ice and snow. Bai instantly clocks that he's in the domain of a cloud-type magic beast. As he casually strolls through the territory, he stumbles upon a snoozing ice bear. And right in front of it, a lovely collection of human skeletons. Looks like a few other adventurers have already rage quit. While he's taking in the charming decor, a bloodthirsty forest wolf jumps him from out of nowhere and nearly takes his head off. This E-rank wolf is technically way stronger than Bai is right now. Bai leaps back to dodge the attack, but the thing comes right back at him. He manages to block the wolf's teeth with his blade, just in the nick of time. Bai then decides he's had enough, goes on the offensive, and finishes the wolf with a single, clean slash. He's only pulling this off because of the A-rank shiny he's swinging around, a piece of gear you definitely can't find on the open market. That's exactly why his old man kept it under wraps. With this bad boy in hand, Bai can totally bridge the power gap between himself and these overgrown puppies. It's called the Hun Wu blade, forged from pure Hun Wu stone, and this thing is so ridiculous it slices through iron like it's made of jello. But hey, even with this cheat code of a weapon, Bai figures it'll still take at least 4 solid whacks to put down these beasts, thanks to their beefy defense. He can't help but scoff, reminiscing about how much he misses being an all-powerful L-rank awakener. He figures out he needs to ice 20 wolves to get a single skill level up. And since he's fighting in this frozen wasteland, it's his cloud element that's going to get all the juicy upgrades. It's going to take him 10 of those upgraded levels to finally crawl out of E-rank and hit dank. And speak of the devil, Bai is suddenly mobbed by a whole pack of wolves, drawn in by the scent of blood. What a perfect, if slightly sketchy, chance to farm some EXP. The wolves try to dogpile him, but our boy just leans on 2 classic skills, dodge and counterattack. He's just weaving through the chaos, dishing out pain without taking a single hit. He clears out the first wave, with each kill netting him a sweet 52 experience points. He also snagged some wolf's fangs as loot. Now that the minions are dealt with, he's got the big bad Wolf King to handle. Tapping into his agility, he buries his blade in the wolf's hide again and again, giving it 0 chance to regen. The Wolf King bites the dust, and Bai banks a cool 56 points for the kill. And because he took down the boss mob, he also scored a Snow Wolf Diamond as a bonus drop. After wiping the floor with that first pack, Bai has enough experience to finally rank up to dank. He also gets 12 attribute points to dump wherever he pleases. He can't help but notice he's already getting winded after taking out a measly 20 wolves, and scoffs at how pathetic these E-rank bodies are. He also makes a mental note that he desperately needs a dimensional backpack to haul all this sweet loot. Bai has to admit, trying to solo a demonic cave is a real grind. That Snow Wolf Diamond he pocketed is a super tough gem used for crafting special weapons, and it fetches a hefty price on the market. He knows the only way to get into the high-tier demonic caves is to get in good with the Divine Core. Since the Awakening Academies are basically run by the guilds, they're always sending out reps to scout for fresh meat. It's every student's fantasy to graduate and land a cushy gig with a major guild. But if you get booted from your team, your career is basically over before it even starts. Which is the exact sob story of Bai's father, and the reason the old man is hard stuck at C rank. Checking his stats, Bai knows he's about to burn through the rest of his stamina if he tries to solo all these beasts. The guy's already running on fumes when, of course, another pack of wolves just pops up. Time to pull a pro gamer move. He bolts, kiting the whole wolf pack behind him straight into a forest, where he starts chopping down trees to clear the field. All that racket is basically a dinner bell for the forest's other local celebrity, the one and only Cloud Python. So now Bai's got wolves and pythons on his tail. To get out of this mess, Bai puts his master plan into action and sets off a massive explosion, hoping to give a very specific, very grumpy resident a wake-up call. And it works like a charm as a sleepy, and now very angry, frost bear stomps out of its den, ready to smash whatever it sees first. The wolves and pythons don't stand a chance against the bear's morning temper, as they all get absolutely wrecked. While the bear is busy throwing its little tantrum, Bai swoops in from behind to clean up the kills, racking up a sweet pile of experience points. He keeps this little bait and switch going, farming points and collecting loot like python fangs and wolf fangs. Bai is just exploiting their one major weakness. Sure, they're aggressive, but they have the combined brainpower of a rock. By sicking the bear on everyone else, he's barely breaking a sweat. However, he still has to land the finishing blow to get that sweet EXP. After a few more minutes of this, Bai is wiped. It's time to roll out phase 2 of his genius plan. Once he gets all the monsters lined up perfectly, he smashes the ground, shattering the ice floor to finish them all off. Turns out, He'd been scouting the terrain and realized they were all fighting on a giant ice bridge between two cliffs. This absolutely brilliant play wipes out almost the entire mob in a single move. Baiyi's exhausted, but he still has to deal with the frost bear and the last few straggler wolves. The system dings, unlocking a new title for him, 1 against 100. With this shiny new title, all his stats get a 10% buff when he's fighting a crowd. Still, Baiyi isn't even sweating the frost bear. He knows every dungeon has a final boss, and he's just waiting for the main event. He's caused this much chaos, so he's wondering what's taking the big bad so long to show up. Suddenly, a massive ice spell slams into the area. Before he even has time to blink, he and the few remaining beasts get blasted. Baiyi instantly realizes he made a huge miscalculation. The final boss was already awake and was just camping, waiting for the perfect moment when everyone was completely gassed. Baiyi and the last of the monsters are all conveniently clumped together in one spot, making them a perfect target with zero room to dodge. The spell hits hard, and his legs are already frozen solid. And that's when it hits him. The whole ice bridge was a classic bait-and-switch trap. This boss literally set the entire stage just to swoop in and yoink all the loot. Baiyi's brain finally catches up. This dungeon boss has more than 2 brain cells to rub together. Turns out, the final boss is none other than the Kalen demon monkey. And, surprise, surprise, it brought its whole ape entourage as bodyguards. At this point, Baiyi is practically a human ice sculpture, completely unable to move, while the demon monkey just chills with the smuggest grin you've ever seen. Apparently, this was a high-risk dungeon meant for a full party of E-rank warriors, not a solo field trip. With his body completely flash-frozen, Baiyi starts worrying about getting a permanent case of the shivers, which, would be game over. The monkey boss dramatically raises a hand, points right at Baiyi, and sicks his goon squad on him. Realizing he's totally cornered, Baiyi decides to whip out his clutch parry skill. But this ain't a button-mashing move, it's all about that perfect timing. So Baiyi waits for the absolute last millisecond before impact, then bam, he pops his parry and shatter skills simultaneously, shattering the ice prison and deflecting the attack. He's free, but only for a hot second. Baiyi knows he's in deep trouble because that little stunt just nuked a massive chunk of his stamina bar. See, the shatter skill is basically a get-out-of-jail-free card, letting an awakened burn all their energy to break free from crowd control. But the stamina cost is absolutely insane. Baiyi's gambling that the monkey's ultimate skill has a long cooldown, so his only shot is to take it down before it's ready again. But the Monkey King just points again, sending in the ice bears and wolves to dogpile our boy. And just to make things worse, his Nucleo element is basically useless against their cloud element. Baiyi knows his odds of winning are tanking hard. His stamina is in the red, and he's getting seriously gassed. All the while, the demon monkey kicks back on its icy throne like a true final boss, just ordering its lackeys around. Baiyi's thinking if even one more mob shows up, he's totally toast. As he's scrambling for a plan, one of the monkey goons rushes him, swinging a club big enough to turn him into a pancake. Baiyi barely gets his block up in time, but the force sends him sliding backward, his knee grinding against the ice as he struggles to stay on his feet. That one hit just about drained what little strength he had left, putting him in a world of hurt. And to top it all off, the ice bear's non-stop screaming is hitting him with a nasty, weakening debuff. One of the bears hurls a massive ice boulder his way, which he just barely manages to slice in half. However, this whole frozen wasteland isn't helping, and his stamina bar is now blinking on absolute zero. The second that troll of a demon monkey sees Baiyi is running on fumes, it unleashes another ultimate skill: Ice Storm. Baiyi is completely floored. Who the heck programmed this monkey boss with such a ridiculously short cooldown on its ultimate? His eyes go wide with the classic, "oh crap," expression as he stares down the incoming attack. This triggers a flashback to his past life, where he basically majored in surviving dumb situations and minored in spotting an escape route. Baiyi does some quick mental math, and let's just say the numbers aren't looking good. He's got 2 choices on the menu. Option 1, stay and throw hands. But with his stamina bar blinking red and his HP dropping faster than a bad stock, that's basically a one-way ticket to the graveyard. Option 2 is the legendary secret technique, run for your life. Baiyi doesn't hesitate, picking option 2 and yeeting himself off the cliff. But hold on, the demon monkey wasn't done playing, hitting him with a cheap shot ice spell that freezes his feet, which turns his epic leap of faith into a clumsy, flailing plummet. Now a human popsicle, Baiyi makes a glorious splash into the river below. Meanwhile, while our boy is fighting for his life, His mom casually strolls into his room back on Earth, thinking Bai is just snoozing away. But plot twist, she's shocked to find the bed is empty. Bai had bounced the day before, a Friday, and now it's Saturday. The weekend's just starting, and he's already gone AWOL. His mom spots a note from her little adventurer, claiming he's just crashing at a friend's place and urging her not to worry. Yeah, right. That note just cranked her anxiety up to 11, 'cause she knows he'd have told her face to face, not with some sketchy letter. She's wondering what in the world is up with him. He's been acting super weird since the day before. The poor woman is totally on edge, with a million worst-case scenarios playing in her head. But back in the dungeon, our boy somehow survived the nosedive. And get this, that ridiculous cliff jump was apparently all part of his master plan. He recalls that when he broke the ice bridge earlier, nearly 100 beasts took a dive into the river. However, he only got XP notifications for 40 of them, which means the rest are still kicking. Bai hacks up some water, dragging his sorry self out of the freezing river. He survived, but barely. His stamina bar is practically non-existent at this point. He's suffering from every debuff in the book: blood loss, hypothermia, and a critically weakened status effect. His body also took massive fall damage from that high-altitude belly flop. Without a doubt, Bai knows he's running on fumes. As he lies there, he can't help but wonder if this is where his adventure gets a game over screen. And before he can even catch his breath, he's surrounded by a welcoming party of ice bears, all ready to turn him into a chew toy. As they close in, the classic pre-death flashback sequence begins. He remembers his time with the Divine Core, the epic moments with his squad, and even his mom's nagging, which suddenly seems pretty nice. He also gets a highlight reel of his trash dad's antics and the gut punch of being backstabbed by a traitor. Then, a dramatic voice in his head chimes in. Welp, this is it. The end of the line. That was all it took for Bai to ball his fists and declare, "It's not over yet." He staggers to his feet just as a massive ice bear moves in for the final chomp. With a surge of defiance, he throws up a hand, catching its colossal jaws and stopping them dead in their tracks. Bai's eyes burned with resolve. There was no way in hell he was letting his tragic past life play out a second time. He'd already hit the game over screen once before, losing absolutely everything. But this time, he was flipping the script. Fueled by a new, unbreakable will, Bai absolutely decks the ice bear, sending it flying into the next zip code. He exhales a frosty breath and grips his short sword once more. And just like that, his near-death stunt triggers the conditions for a potential class advancement. A brilliant golden aura erupts and swirls violently around Bai's body, and he's still completely surrounded by a horde of monsters. Turns out, his genius plan to solo this dungeon and get his butt kicked was all to recreate that rock-bottom desperation from his past life. He was banking on that life-or-death feeling to trigger an adrenaline dump and force a class advancement. He almost bit the dust for real, but nope, the system decided he didn't quite meet the conditions. However, instead of a fancy new class, he got a shiny new ultimate skill as a consolation prize. Say hello to Nucleo Holy Swordsman. A skill so broken, it's way ahead of the current meta. So, no class change, but this little gem is going to be more than handy. With this new toy and his veins pumping pure adrenaline, Bai is practically vibrating with power. He levels his sword at the monster mob, letting them know that playtime is officially over. One monster lunges, and the rest of the pack foolishly follows suit. Bai doesn't even flinch, just readies his short sword. As the beasts close in, he unleashes a blindingly fast, swirling attack called Sanctuary, carving through every single monster around him in one clean slash. He mows them down as a cascade of system notifications floods his vision, telling him he has successfully sent the ice bears and forest wolves packing, complete with a satisfying list of all the sweet XP he just raked in. After clearing the trash mobs, he scores some sweet loot, like Icefield Beasthide, a proud barebone, and a bloodtooth. And get this, the Sanctuary skill also totally wipes his fatigue and refills his stamina bar. And if that wasn't enough, Bai also snags an upgrade and unlocks the Ice Field Wanderer title. This bad boy grants him resistance to cloud element critters, plus a flat 100-point damage reduction, which is exactly what the doctor ordered. Bai glares up at the cliff's peak, making a silent vow to exterminate every last beast up there, especially their big, ugly boss. And with that massive flood of experience points, he dings level 9 of the E-class. Bai instantly toggles on his new Icefield Wanderer effect to laugh at the cold. Oh, and as if Sanctuary wasn't busted enough, it also lets him store, soaking up hits and then blasting it all back at a mob of enemies. The catch, though, is he has to get seriously roughed up first. Still, he's just glad the skill topped off his stamina bar. Suddenly, Bai Yi remembers the ultimate final boss, his mom. He's gotta wrap this up as soon as possible before she starts worrying. So he scales the cliff face and marches straight for the demon monkey boss's crib. Turns out the big ape is guarded by a bunch of frosty critters, but Bai Yi couldn't care less and just crashes the party. After trashing a few more of these goons, he's finally hit the E-class cap, level 10. Meanwhile, back at home, it's 11 p.m., and Bai Yi's mom is starting to freak out. She's got a whole dinner spread ready, but her boy is nowhere to be found. All she can do is hope to heck he's okay. Back in the boss room, Bai Yi mops the floor with the Ice Bear security detail, leaving just the boss's personal hit squad, a bunch of seriously ticked-off monkeys. The monkey boss is looking all smug, ordering his minions to mess Bai Yi up. One of them leaps right at our boy, but Bai Yi just casually parries, and then turns it into two smaller, less alive monkeys. The boss's jaw drops. Realizing this ain't going to plan, he furiously pops his ultimate, the Ice Storm Assault, but it does absolutely nothing to Bai Yi, who just stands there like, "Is that all you got?" Thanks to his new immunity. Bai Yi just blitzes straight for the big guy. In a total panic, the boss shoves his staff in the air, triggering some spell that makes the jewel on it glow and sends the other monkeys into a roid rage frenzy. But to Bai Yi, they're not a threat. They're just walking EXP bags he needs to pop to hit D-class. Bai Yi carves through the powered-up monkeys like they're made of wet paper before casually helping the monkey boss lose an arm. The boss shrieks as his arm juice goes everywhere. Before the one-armed wonder can even react, it locks eyes with Bai Yi's "you're already dead" glare. Bai Yi then unleashes a flurry of slashes all over the boss's body, and that's a wrap. A system window dings, announcing that Bai Yi has successfully clapped the D-class cloud element user, the so-called king of the Azure Forest, and scored a cool 1,000 experience points. On top of that, he's officially promoted to a D-class nuclear warrior. With the fight over, he spots some sweet loot on the ground. But wait, there's more. Because he got all that experience fighting a cloud element baddie, the system informs him a whole new profession is about to unlock. Bai Yi is totally floored. He completely forgot this was a thing. A flashy red and blue aura starts erupting from his body. Boom. He awakens the cloud element mage profession, meaning he can now swap classes whenever he feels like it. Bai Yi is absolutely stoked to have awakened a red profession, even if it's just E-class. Forget the standard 100% bonus from the Nucleo class. This bad boy comes with a whopping 200% boost. The red class's base power is already on par with his main one. Grinning, Bai Yi snags the mage weapon, the Stone of Magic, and also scores a magic pouch that can hold 20 items. While he's busy pocketing all the goodies, the leftover beasts can only stare like idiots. Once he's finished his shopping spree, Bai Yi glances up and, oh look, a few stragglers survived. Well, since he just unlocked a brand new toy, he figures they'll make perfect target practice. Time to switch to mage mode. A menacing red aura flares from his eyes as he gets ready to absolutely delete them. By the time he's done, it's 5 a.m. The next morning, a Sunday. Bai's mom, bless her heart, hasn't slept a wink, just waiting in the living room for her son to return. And right on cue, the door opens, and she shoots up from her seat in an instant. Bai strolls in with a cool smile, immediately apologizing for making her worry. His mom doesn't even hesitate, rushing over and pulling him into a tearful, bone-crushing hug. Bai's stunned to see she's been waiting all night and hasn't even eaten. He then tells her he's got some awesome news. See, on his way out of the dungeon, Bai stuffed that new magic pouch to the brim with valuable loot. After cashing out, he runs into a local ore broker. The guy tries to lowball him with an offer of 800, but Bai just smirks and counters with 8,000, making the broker's jaw hit the floor. Bai doesn't even bother arguing, he just starts to take the ore back. Panicking, the broker bumps his offer to 2,000, but Bai just scoffs and demands 5,000. The broker desperately pleads, 3,000, that's my final offer. But as he's saying this, Bai starts an auction with himself, casually raising the price until it hits 7,000. The broker is still trying to argue, but when he realizes Bai isn't going to stop, he caves and screams, fine, 7,000. Having dealt with these greedy clowns in his past life, Bai knows exactly how to play them. With the fat stack of cash he just made, he rents a killer apartment for his mother. In his previous life, his mom just went from one tragedy to the next. But this time, Bai's only goal is to spoil her rotten and make sure she can finally relax. He seals the deal for the apartment right there in front of his mom, who is completely floored by the price tag. By 8 p.m., that Sunday, they were all settled into their swanky new place. Bai is thrilled to see his mother genuinely smiling. It's been way too long since he's seen that expression on her face. But even with a sweet new apartment, and a class up from E to D class, he knows he can't let his guard down for a second, not with his father still out there. Bai figures he should clear the dad side quest before tackling the main boss. So, he slaps on a magic stone for his right arm, giving all his AoE spells a whopping 50% boost. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, our boy Hong is grinding like a madman, trying to break his limits by chain-running dungeons without a single break. He's so in the zone that when his sister begs him to take a breather, he just smacks her hand away. Talk about edgy. Yeah, Hong's ready to do whatever it takes to keep his #1 spot. Elsewhere, some shadowy figure is scrolling through the list of newbie awakened and is totally unimpressed by this year's crop of talent. The next morning, at 7:30 sharp, Bai's mom has a feast ready for him, which is when our hero has a mini heart attack, realizing he's late. He's all like, "Why didn't you wake me up?" And she just says he looked so peaceful she couldn't bring herself to do it. She gives him a little head pat and tells him to chill out and eat. And just like that, with his mom's magic touch, Bai's stress levels plummet, and it hits him that it's been forever since he's slept this well or had a breakfast that wasn't a speed-eating competition. Right on cue, his mom pops the question, "Anything you want? A toy? A book?" Bai's completely caught off guard by the sudden talk of presents. She then reminds him that his birthday is coming up next Friday, June 5th, to be exact. The realization smacks Bai right in the face. She's totally right. But the date completely slipped his mind since it's been ages since he actually celebrated. After his mom passed away in his previous life, nobody ever made a fuss over his birthday again, so the whole concept just faded from his memory. So while munching on breakfast, Bai's brain goes into overdrive, trying to think of a single thing he wants, but he comes up totally blank, because the one thing he truly desires is already back in his life. His next, and let's be real, most important, agenda item is to permanently delete the backstabber who got him and his crew wiped out. Once Bai rolls up to school, he finds out everyone's buzzing about the upcoming combat simulation. The teacher, a classic NPC, stands before the fresh batch of Awakened and starts the briefing. He lays it all out. The academy is basically under the thumb of the Divine Guild, and those big shots will be watching their every move. This little combat sim is their one big shot to impress the guild overlords. He drops another bombshell. This thing doubles as their graduation exam and, get this, it's going to be broadcast live. The top dog gets an all-access pass to a training camp with the high school division big leagues. This camp is a once-a-year golden ticket, the absolute best chance to network with the Divine Guild. Normally, the school rounds up the cream of the crop from both middle and high school for a field trip to the Shanghai Nation, home of the Divine Guild's main headquarters. Bai's mind flashes back to the Shanghai Nation, the very place he met his master, and, ironically, where that backstabbing traitor first crawled out of. But here's the kicker. The traitor never even laid eyes on the master, having slithered into the Divine Core long after Bai did. So, the game plan is simple. Absolutely crush this assessment and get into that elite training camp, which will give him way more chances to hunt down that snake. The big showdown, the simulation battle, is this Friday, just 4 days away, and while some chumps are buzzing with excitement, guys like Four Eyes are practically sweating bullets, probably because it's going down in a times-real-times labyrinth. The instructor then dramatically gestures toward the training room, announcing their very first session. First up on the agenda, a grueling physical conditioning session in the gravity room, where everyone has to start with 10 sets of shuttle runs. Fun. But then, in a move that surprises literally no one who knows him, Bai strolls right up to his teacher. He casually announces he's not really feeling the recommended training room, causing the teacher and every other student to just short-circuit. The teacher immediately gets on his high horse, telling Bai not to let that one lucky win against Hong go to his head, totally convinced our boy is just trying to weasel his way out of training. But Bai, cool as a cucumber, clarifies that he's actually looking for something a bit more specialized. This just flusters the teacher, who gets all defensive, asking if Bai is implying there's a problem with his precious methods. Bai starts by throwing him a bone, admitting that yeah, physical conditioning is key for most awakeners, so the gravity room isn't a terrible idea. However, he then drops the butt, explaining that shuttle runs are really only optimal for classes like assassins and warriors. You know, the ones that actually need all that speed and fancy footwork. He finishes with a shrug, basically saying it's a one-size-fits-none approach. He then proceeds to school the teacher, pointing out that classes like mages and chanters would get way more bang for their buck in the element room. He caps it off by stating the obvious: everyone should have a custom training plan because, hello, their classes work completely differently. The instructor just stares, finally processing it all, and points out, "So, you're basically telling me how to do my job." Meanwhile, Qian, who's been eavesdropping this whole time, is having a full-on mental breakdown. It hits her like a ton of bricks. Bai's genius idea is the exact same training method a top-tier Divine Corps officer, a Mr. Dongyang, just proposed. But it's a brand new theory, and the only reason she even knows about it is because her dad brought home the classified training tape. Qian can't wrap her head around how Bai could possibly know this stuff. At the same time, Specs is frantically trying to get Bai to tone it down, whispering at him to stop being so ridiculously blunt with the teacher, who happens to be the school's most notoriously strict trainer. But instead of blowing a gasket, the teacher just claps Bai on the shoulder, a slow grin spreading across his face. And then he says that this little training method Bai mentioned is interesting. The teacher starts spouting the classic NPC line about how with so many noobs, he can't possibly give everyone a personalized tutorial. He drones on about how the combat sim is basically the final boss of their academic careers, and if you botch it, you're pretty much staring at a lifelong game over screen. Bai Yi gets a flashback to his previous playthrough, remembering his trash-tier family situation. But hey, at least his teachers were like high-level support characters, buffing him up until he wasn't a total screw-up. Snapping back to reality, he gives the teacher the classic protagonist stare, promising he won't be the one to wipe the party. The teacher, now intrigued, asks Bai what his training build is going to be for his nuclear warrior class. And here it is, folks. Bai, with a stone-cold face, asks them to crank the elemental suppression debuff in the training room to its maximum setting. The teacher, and even Specs, nearly blue screen from the shock. Bai Yi cooks up a legendary lie, saying that even though he's a warrior, he's trying to balance his stats and challenge his weak points, all while hiding his secret side hustle, grinding his hidden mage class. And just as the lie is settling in, Keen raises her hand like the class president, announcing she also wants to get in on this elemental control practice. The teacher just throws his hands up, basically telling the two weirdos to go nuts, but he warns them not to come crying to him if they fail. During the final assessment, Cheen slides up to Bai, suggesting they party up for training, but our boy shuts her down faster than a server maintenance, saying he's going solo in a private room. Total rejection. Of course, Kian takes this as a challenge, claiming his cold shoulder just activated her tryhard mode. So, cut to Bai grinding away in the elemental room, and man, he's feeling the noob debuffs hard. His mage skills are still at level 1, but he's planning a speedrun to max level before the deadline. He's also got to keep his class-switching cheat code on the absolute down low, because this whole school is basically a server run by god-tier GMs who are spectating everyone's every move. The last thing he needs is to get flagged for using exploits and become a priority target for the ban hammer. Meanwhile, Keen is over in the kiddie pool, training with a measly 1% elemental suppression, thinking she can actually rival Bai's power level. Bai, on the other hand, isn't about to start adding people to his friends list, wanting to protect them from the splash damage of his main character plot. After school, Specs and his buddy try to catch up to Bai, yelling at him to slow his roll. Turns out, these two were his main party members back in middle school, during his first playthrough. Since they were all low-level scrubs back then, they got ganked and griefed by bullies on the daily. Hanging out with his fellow weaklings was literally the only side quest that gave him any happiness in that entire god-forsaken zone. But this time, he's on a revenge quest, and he figures social links are just a waste of experience points. So to ditch them, he hops on his trusty steed, a bicycle, and ghosts them like a bad date. His old pals are left in the dust, totally bewildered, wondering what happened to their supposedly unbreakable trio. Specs couldn't help but notice Bai was a whole new man since his awakening, walking around like he owned the place. Just a few moments later, they finally catch up to a waiting Bai, who casually tells Specs he should probably get those lungs looked at when he gets a chance. The two were thrilled he finally took a break, but Bai was just getting warmed up to crush their spirits. He flat out told them they were way too slow to hang with him, then hopped on his bike and peaced out. He left the two of them standing there, completely floored. See, in his past life, Specs got hit with a surprise lung disease diagnosis and, well, he didn't make it much longer after that. Bai's just trying to keep the guy alive, whether they become best buds or not. On the flip side, Specs is convinced that underneath that new icy exterior, the old Bai is still in there somewhere. Over at the Shanghai Nation's boot camp for new recruits, a couple of guys were gossiping about some hotshot rookie who's been absolutely crushing it. This new guy just so happens to have the same hair as the snake who sold out Bai and his old squad. That night, when Bai got home, he gave his mom a heads up, telling her not to go wandering around by herself. He promised he'd always be home early with the groceries. Bai's on edge because he knows damn well the world out there isn't exactly a safe space for his mom, and he needs to find a much better place for her. And fast. Meanwhile, in the slammer for Awakeners, Ling Shang was already pulling strings and cutting deals with one of the kitchen staff. By the next day, Tuesday, Bai had already cracked the code on how mages operate. He'd figured out the whole game was about casting time and calculating the exact amount of elemental juice you needed. So while he was basically redlining the training room's equipment, his buddies were huffing and puffing their way through some basic shuttle runs. The grind continued the next day, after which Specs and his pal asked Bai to grab some dinner. Predictably, he shot them down cold, saying he had to get home early. However, he did leave them with a little parting gift. A secret pro-gamer move for archers. The archer friend was practically over the moon after hearing the tip. Fast forward to Thursday, Specs actually went to the clinic, where the doctor told him he was incredibly lucky he came in when he did. The doctor informed him that a nasty, fast-growing parasitic tumor had set up shop in his lungs. The doc told Specs to book a surgery at a major hospital as soon as possible to get that thing evicted. Specs thanked him and promised he'd get right on making that appointment. But as he was walking out, it all clicked. Bai was the one who warned him about his lungs. He was left wondering how the hell Bai could have known, just adding another layer to the guy's growing mystery. Just then, he overhears some dudes gossiping about Hong. Apparently, Hong hit E-Class Level 4, and they're convinced he's going to be the star player in the assessment. Turns out, his family is so rich they have their own private labyrinth. And little Hong has been using it to power level for his daddy's private army. But that's when the trio drops a juicy detail that makes Specs' ears perk up. Hong is scheming to teach Bei a lesson after school because of what went down last weekend. The guys are saying Hong is absolutely fuming and is even planning to send Bei to the respawn screen for good. Hong's even geared up with a weapon to look extra dangerous. The second Spec hears this. He realizes his friend is in major trouble, and, in a panic, he leaps into action. He decides that backing up Bai is the only move he's got, so he starts tearing through the school hallway. His mind is racing, picturing all the lame, predictable tricks Hong is probably gonna try. Specs starts stressing that Hong might have rounded up his goons to jump Bai, and he skids to a halt. The thought of how completely useless he'll be hits him like a truck, and he almost chickens out. But then he remembers that Bai was the one who had his back. In his head, Bai is his brother from another mother, and he's ready to go down swinging to save him. Specs bolts to the school armory and just smashes the lock to get inside, feeling a little guilty about breaking the rules. But he just can't shake the image of Bai saving his butt from his mind. He shoves the door open, totally prepared to face his doom for the sake of his friend. He scans the weapon rack, ignores everything practical, and snags a massive axe. All of a sudden, he hears Qian's voice from behind him, asking why in the world he's breaking into the armory. Specs tries to play it cool, but Qian keeps pressing, asking what's up since he looks like he's about to explode. Specs finally cracks and just screams at Qian that he has to go save Bai's life. Meanwhile, our main man, Bai, already knows he's being followed. He ducks into an alley before casually telling his stalker to show themselves. And out steps Hong. He's trying to look all menacing with a sword in his hand, announcing that it's payback time. Bai just turns with a look of utter pity, asking Hong if he seriously thinks he stands a chance. Hong fires back that he's 100% positive he can wipe the floor with Bai. He says this as he pops his accelerate skill and charges straight at Bai. Hong boasts that he's been on a non-stop training montage ever since they last clashed. On top of his speed boost, Hong activates another skill to pull a classic teleport behind you maneuver. Right as the punch is about to land, Bai zips out of the way like he was never there. The moment an opening appears, he grabs Hong and absolutely slams him into the ground, earning a pained gasp. It dawns on Hong that Bai's attack power is on a completely different level than his own. He can't wrap his head around it, but Bai just smirks, saying, "You're not the only one who's been grinding." Bai then whips out his dagger and plants it in the dirt right next to Hong's head with a thud. Hong finally gets the picture. Bai is miles ahead of him in both power and strength. Sure, they're the same age, But Hong realizes the menacing dude on top of him is someone he could never hope to surpass. Hong is completely stunned that Bai Yi managed to level up too. He screams at him, demanding to know his level, refusing to believe this is happening. "How did you do it?" he yells, revealing he went through hellish extra training just to reach level 4. All that blood, sweat, and tears, and he still can't believe Bai Yi is faster. A sly grin spreads across Bai Yi's face when Hong whines about how hard he's been training. Bai Yi coolly asks him, "Yeah, but have you ever died before?" With a blade to his neck, Hong just spits. "Then kill me or torture me already?" Hong accuses Bai Yi of looking down on him this whole time, and Bai Yi just casually admits it. But he reassures Hong that he doesn't actually despise him, times that times much. Bai Yi's actually kind of impressed that Hong came at him head-on, instead of ambushing him or calling his crew for a beatdown. Bai Yi sees right through him. Hong was just trying to see how he measured up. Hong screams at Bai Yi to finish the job now, or risk getting clapped by him later. He can't stand Bai Yi acting like he's got him all figured out. Bai Yi gives it a thought, and says, "You know what? I take it back. I think I'm starting to dislike you quite a bit." Meanwhile, Specs and Chi have arrived on the scene, watching the drama unfold from the shadows. They're pretty surprised to see Bai Yi has the situation handled all by himself. They spot Bai Yi just sitting on Hong like he's a beanbag chair, and Hong isn't even putting up a fight. Bai Yi then leans in and tells Hong he has a little proposition for him. He lets him know there's a shortcut to getting stronger, but in return, Hong's gonna owe him one. The next day, Friday, rolls around, and it's officially assessment day. The teacher announces to the assembled students that it's time for the combat simulation, explaining that even though it's a test, they'll be entering an actual, real-life labyrinth. He clarifies that while most of the labyrinth's power has been sealed, it's still a dangerous place. The teacher warns them all to play it smart and stick to what they can handle, because the place is crawling with dangerous monsters. To keep you newbies from becoming monster chow, we're assigning some upperclassmen to babysit you. And no, they won't be fighting your battles. They're just there to pull you out of the fire if you're about to get totally wrecked. You'll team up in squads of 4 to 5, with a senior calling the shots. You can pick between the kiddie pool F-class dungeons or the slightly more serious E-class ones. But make no mistake, the E-class dungeons are a whole different league of pain. The teacher is basically warning you not to be a hero if you've got zero power. He also casually mentions that, if you fail, you can kiss your precious academic credits goodbye. So yeah, no pressure or anything. After laying down the law, the teacher tells everyone to go ahead and pick their poison. He asks, "Alright, who are the brave or stupid ones wanting to challenge an E-class dungeon? Hands up." A grand total of 8 students, including our guys Chi Yin and Hong, actually raise their hands for the E-class challenge. Specs is over there bug-eyed, thinking, are they insane? Those dungeons are a one-way ticket to the infirmary. Out of 180 students, the teacher announces that only 8 have the guts. He then informs the rest of the flock they'll be randomly shoved into the F-class dungeons. But wait a second, Chi Yin notices that Bai Yi hasn't even bothered to lift a finger. Just then, Bai Yi casually strolls up to the teacher and drops an absolute bombshell. He wants to challenge the school's D-class Spirit Jade dungeon. The entire auditorium goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop after Bai Yi's insane declaration. A D-class dungeon? Seriously? A wave of pure, unadulterated shock washed over the entire room. His teacher just stared, completely dumbfounded by the sheer absurdity of the request. Among the sea of stunned faces, Hong Chen Sheng and the class president, Chi Yin, were looking on with utter disbelief. The teacher finally snaps out of it and basically tells Bai Yi he's got to be kidding. He lays it out flat. Nobody just waltzes into a D-class dungeon and flat out refuses. However, one look at Bai Yi's intense glare made it crystal clear this was no joke. And right on cue, the dean of the junior high division, Hong Liang, makes his grand entrance. He tries to talk some sense into him, explaining that D-class dungeons are crazy dangerous and meant for upperclassmen who are actually ranked D-class or higher. Bai Yi, however, looked completely unfazed. He fires back that the combat simulation rules explicitly allow students to choose their own level. Then he adds, "This school's whole purpose is to scout exceptional talent for the Divine Guild, is it not? And the last time I checked, exceptional means having both bravery and strength." Bai Yi then hit him with a, "So are you really going to deny me the chance to prove I've got the goods?" Pinned by Bai Yi's airtight logic, Dean Hong Liang finally started to crack, but he immediately threw up another roadblock. All dungeons require a team entry. Bai Yi shot back instantly, saying he could solo the whole thing. This just ticked off the dean, who snapped that solo runs are strictly forbidden by school rules to keep students from, kicking the bucket. Just as they reached a total gridlock, Chi-Yin's hand shot up, and she boldly announced she was also picking the D-class dungeon, her expression dead serious. Dean Hong Liang, looking like he was about to blow a gasket, questioned Chi-Yin's choice, asking if she'd completely lost her marbles, and freaking out about how he'd ever face her father if she got hurt. But Chi-Yin stood her ground, refusing to budge. She argued that she was also aiming for the highest score possible, and was dying to push her own limits. With a slick wink, she turned to Bai and offered to party up, only to be met with complete and utter shock. Bai flat out rejected her, stone-faced, saying he was clearing this dungeon all by himself. Before Chi-Yin could even process being shut down yet again, the teacher swooped in. He plopped a hand on both of their heads and declared that Bai's little refusal was officially null and void. He was basically strong-arming them into a team. The dean, heaving a massive sigh of frustration, caved in, muttering under his breath about how ridiculously arrogant all the new kids were. But then the teacher brought up a brand new problem. Since their little squad only had 2 people attempting a seriously dangerous dungeon, it was a long shot that any upperclassman would volunteer to babysit them. Just when it seemed like their whole plan was toast, a single hand shot up from the senior section. A ridiculously charismatic guy stepped forward with a killer smile, proclaiming that the precious flowers of the motherland always need someone to look out for them. The teacher's face flooded with relief as he told the volunteer that with him around, he could finally relax. Chi-Yin, now huddled up next to Bai, instantly recognized the senior who just volunteered. She told Bai his name was Zeeling and let slip that he'd been a hair's breadth away from joining the legendary Ultimate School team. As Zeeling swaggered towards them with a smug smirk plastered on his face, Bai was just thinking, who is this clown? And what the heck is that team? When Zeeling was standing right in front of him, Bai just deadpanned, never heard of you. The comment actually made Zeeling chuckle, who figured Bai was just some ignorant peacock who didn't know any better, just itching to flex on everyone, completely clueless about his own league. Once the last team was locked in, the teacher got everyone's attention. He announced that the teams were set and the combat simulation was officially kicking off, as he conjured up a massive, glowing red portal. He laid it all out. Their every move inside the dungeons would be live-streamed by pro-grade drones. With one last pep talk, he told them to give it their all and see who could rack up the highest score. While the other students got ready to dive in, Bai was locked in, staring ahead with a look of pure resolve. Fun fact, the Awakened Academy was actually built right on top of a massive, conquered demon cave. As the years went by, this main cave spawned a ton of smaller, low-level portals all over the school grounds, perfect for both the middle and high schoolers. These fresh dungeons, with power levels mostly hovering, somewhere between F and D class, were basically the perfect playgrounds for the students to level up. And just like that, as students like Specs and his buddy hopped into their portals, the combat simulation went live. Meanwhile, inside their portal, we find Bai Yi, Chi-Yin, and their senior supervisor, the one and only Zeeling, with a little camera drone buzzing right behind them. Bai Yi knew the score. This whole thing was being broadcast live, and his every single move was on camera. He realized he had to play it cool and not bust out all his trump cards, especially with who knows what lurking around the corner. With the gods watching his every move, his reason for picking this specific challenge was crystal clear. The Spirit Jade dungeon had something he was dying to get his hands on. The squad touched down in a spooky-looking forest, perched right on the edge of a cliff. At their feet lay the smoldering remains of a thorny vine, still pulsing with a faint green energy, proof of their first W. That's when Zeeling, full of unearned confidence, planted himself right between Bai and Chi-Yin. He told the two of them not to even sweat it, because he was here to protect them, bragging that he'd cleared even unsealed D-class dungeons with other top-tier Awakened. As they pushed deeper into the woods, Chi asked Zeeling just how tough the monsters in a D-class dungeon really were. He broke it down for her. Their levels usually range from E5 to D5. But, he pointed out, since the school's dungeons have all their heavy hitters sealed away, it was super unlikely they'd run into a true D-class monster, and there definitely wouldn't be a boss. He then added with a smirk that they shouldn't sleep on the high-level E-class monsters, though, because their attack power and speed can still pack a serious punch. He laid it out for them. As freshmen, they were basically just noobs, and Chion totally got the picture. Zeeling then shifted his attention over to Chi-Yin, promising he'd find some easy-peasy monsters for them to farm points, and swearing he wouldn't let a single scratch land on her. But right in the middle of his little speech, he realized Bai had already wandered way ahead of them, leaking this weird green energy. Zelling froze, completely baffled by what Bai was doing. He shouted after him, warning Bai not to stray too far, or he might accidentally tick off a monster. Bai just stopped in his tracks, glanced back, and flat out told Zelling he was being way too loud. That little comment left the upperclassman totally speechless. With a cocky smirk and his eyes literally glowing, Bai told Zelling to just hang back because, let's be real, his help wasn't going to be needed. All Zelling and Qi Yin could do was gawk as Bai forged ahead, taking charge like he owned the place. The perspective flips to the livestream camera, zeroing in on our trio as the official broadcast for this year's combat simulation kicked off. Meanwhile, back at the academy, massive screens were plastered everywhere so students and staff could catch the live-streamed dungeon dives, broadcasting every team's progress as they crawled through the dungeons. The camera then cuts to a swanky private room, with a plaque that says, Ultimate School Team. Inside, a dude with green hair, who happens to be the team's vice captain, was busy on a call. He was telling his captain to check out the broadcast, saying things were getting pretty spicy this year. With a grin, he dropped the bomb that some freshmen had the guts to challenge a D-class dungeon. A woman's voice shot back, her face completely cloaked in shadow, asking what kind of profession this kid had awakened. The vice captain chuckled, explaining that was the best part. Apparently, the student was a nuclear warrior, one of the absolute trash-tier professions. Intrigued by this insane level of confidence, the mysterious captain declared she had to watch and see what gave this freshman such nerve. And with that, the feed cuts away to show some of the other student teams tackling their own challenges. Inside a sealed-off F-class dungeon, we find Specs absolutely freaking out, screaming for the monsters to get away from him while shaking a tambourine for dear life. His team was desperately fighting off a swarm of F-class flame bats and some seriously angry-looking bats, with his teammates stuck in melee while he was supposed to be providing support from the rear. An upperclassman supervising his team tried to calm him down, telling him not to be so wound up, and reminded him his only job was to toss out buffs from a safe distance. But Specs? Yeah, he was still scared out of his mind, freaking out about how terrifying even the bottom-tier F-class mobs were. Meanwhile, in a sealed-off E-class dungeon, the danger level was cranked way up. Squads were getting swarmed by packs of fierce fangs, basically knockoff wolves juiced up with elemental crackle. Hongqin's crew was getting absolutely wrecked, with a few of his teammates already kissing the dirt. The team's healer was frantically patching someone up, asking if they were going to make it. Seeing his party getting wiped, a fired-up Hongqin declared that if these chumps couldn't hack it, he'd just solo the whole pack himself, all fueled by his petty rivalry, of course. He went full Leroy Jenkins on a fierce fang, screaming that he would definitely, absolutely, 100% surpass Bai. A flashy red status window popped up mid-swing, showing off a skill that jacked up his strength, his crit rate, and gave him some sweet lifesteal, basically redlining his stats. And we cut back to the sealed D-class dungeon, where Bai had just casually dropped a nuke of an attack. A sick-looking green energy slash just ripped through the air, and there he was, standing all chill, surrounded by the gory remains of a bunch of those beasties. System dings started rolling in, confirming his kills and dropping a cool 30 experience points per monster. His teammates, Zelling and Qi Yin, were just staring from the sidelines, their jaws on the floor. Their supervisor was sputtering, trying to ask how in the world Bai just pulled that off. But before he could even drop a one-liner, a new problem crawled into view: two giant, multi-eyed spider freaks. Totally unfazed, of course. Bai just casually explained to Qi that the mobs here are nerfed because the dungeon's sealed, so they're only at half strength. Which is why, it's basically a walk in the park. But Qi Yin, still fangirling over him, swinging that massive blade he yoinked from his dad's safe, argued that even at half power, he took on a whole horde by himself. She had to admit, she was still light years away from his OP level. As he turned to face the next wave of cannon fodder, Bai told her it's a waste of time comparing herself to other people, all with this dead serious, focused look on his face. He was like, just focus on your own grind. Weirdly charmed by Bai's blunt force motivation, Qi just beamed, hugging her spellbook and promising she'd give it her all. Zelling, on the other hand, was practically steaming from the sidelines, absolutely fuming that this cocky rookie was hogging all the glory. So he stomped over, trying to pull rank by reminding Bai that this is just a D-class dungeon and he shouldn't get a big head. even patting Baiyi's hair like he's some kid who needs a lesson. Zeeling had to admit, for a total noob, the kid's performance was pretty slick. But he made sure to warn him this dungeon had 3 caverns, and it wasn't going to be a walk in the park. He started dishing out his master plan, ordering Qi Yin to take out the mobs on the right. Without even blinking, Baiyi cut him off, announcing he was taking the left side. This left Xiling looking like a fool, completely ignored and flustered. The team was now standing in a huge cavern littered with the bodies of dead monsters, with 2 tunnels splitting off in front of them. And at the very back of the room, a massive, pulsing red magic seal was giving off some seriously bad vibes. As Baiyi continued to give him the cold shoulder and talk straight to Qian, Zelling's temper was about to blow. Baiyi asked Qian if she could solo the low-tier monsters on the right path. Pushed to the side, Zelling could only stand there and stew. All he could think was, the absolute nerve of this rookie. Baiyi broke it down for Qian, explaining that this simulation was all about testing their individual power levels. She had to show them what she was made of. Then he hit her with the million-dollar question. Don't you want to rack up a high score? That's all it took to light a fire under Qian. A look of pure determination washed over her face as she declared, I get it. I can do this. With the so-called plan in place, Baiyi casually strolled down the left path all by himself. As Qian and Xiling took the right, they watched Baiyi's back disappear into the darkness. Xiling's face twisted into a nasty snarl as he muttered a curse, deciding that if Baiyi wouldn't learn his place the easy way, then he was about to get a very painful lesson. In a brilliant flash of golden light, he summoned a glowing bow, his intentions shifting from annoyed to downright dangerous. Meanwhile, back in the viewing room, the teachers and students were glued to Baiyi's live feed, their jaws on the floor. The drone footage was pumping out one epic screenshot after another. It showed him single-handedly wrecking entire hordes of E-class monsters. One of the spectators shouted, "Holy crap, look at the body count Baiyi's already racked up." A teacher, completely stunned, asked, "What is his current level, anyway?" Another replied that his official record still had him listed as an Eon, though his true power was anyone's guess. The crowd started speculating he had to be at least an E3, or maybe even an E4 by now. At the same time, Baiyi was squaring off against a swarm of giant, creepy spider monsters on his path. The instructor who oversaw the awakening ceremony explained to the others that Baiyi sending Qi Yin right wasn't just a random call. He had already analyzed the elemental weaknesses, playing 4D chess while everyone else was playing checkers. He sent Qi Yin, the flower element user, to square off against the stellar element monsters, which gave her a massive type advantage right out of the gate. The teacher couldn't help but praise Baiyi's slick decision-making and insane tactical awareness, especially with the pressure of a test. Remembering how Baiyi promised not to let him down, the teacher cracked a proud smile. Realizing the kid wasn't just running his mouth, he leaned in, glued to the screen with intrigue, wondering what other tricks this student had up his sleeve. And bam, the scene flips to Baiyi's perspective, proving the teacher's analysis was spot on. Turns out, he'd already clocked that the stellar-type beasts were swarming from the right-hand cave. And since they were a lower level, it was the perfect warm-up for Qi Yin, especially since she had the elemental upper hand. As she headed down her path, Qi Yin came face to face with a gargantuan beetle-like monster covered in glowing purple markings. The beast charged her like a freight train, but she reacted in a flash, slamming her palm on the ground and casting a spell, yelling, "Vine Wall." In an instant, thick, thorny vines erupted from the earth, ensnaring the monster and locking it down. Even though the spell was a success, you could see the sheer effort on Qi Yin's face as she prepped her next move, gritting her teeth for another assault. With another battle cry, Qi Yin commanded the thorny vines to constrict. They squeezed the life out of that massive beetle, crushing its carapace and inflicting a nasty poison effect as purple goo oozed out. The creature crumpled to the ground, totally defeated. A system notification popped up, confirming her takedown of the E-class starbug and awarding her 30 experience points. Qi Yin pumped her fist in triumph, a proud grin spreading across her face as she yelled, "Nailed it again." Meanwhile, from the entrance to his own path, Baiyi had been keeping an eye on her progress. He noted that mages, even low-level E-class ones, already have their basic class skills. For Qi Yin, that meant being able to conjure a poisonous wall of plants, a skill aptly named Vine Wall. Baiyi had to admit, he was genuinely impressed. For her first ever dungeon run, she was keeping her cool while facing down monsters way stronger than her. Plus, she had the tactical smarts to use her wall skill, not just for defense, but to box the monster in and create a kill zone. He figured she was a total natural when it came to combat. Now that he knew she could handle her own business, Bai locked his gaze onto the enormous, pulsating red seal dominating the far end of the cavern. Flames representing 5 distinct elements danced around its edges, and he was pretty sure the dungeon's sealed D-class monsters were having a party right behind it. Since Qi Yin was busy dealing with the cannon fodder on her own route, he had a golden opportunity to tackle his far more hazardous objective. As he strolled up to the seal, Bai mulled over his game plan. He knew he could snag a top-tier score without revealing his true power level, even with those pesky drones live-streaming his every move for the world to see. Still, he had to be smart about this next move, especially with a seal this beefy staring him in the face. Meanwhile, back at the entrance to Qi Yin's path, Zeeling was absolutely fuming. He couldn't believe the audacity of these rookies who were straight up ignoring his seniority. He figured if they were going to act so high and mighty, he'd be more than happy to show them what a real challenge looks like. His gaze then drifted to the magical seal in the main cavern. Faster than you can blink, he teleported right behind Qi Yin, already drawing his magnificent golden bow. But he didn't aim for a monster. Nope, he pointed it straight at the ground, right in front of her. Sporting a wicked grin, he sneered, "Let's see you handle this," and let loose a brilliant arrow of pure light. The arrow slammed into the ground with the force of a bomb, whizzing past Qi Yin by a hair's breadth, but carving out a deep, dark crater. A stunned Qi Yin whipped around, completely baffled by the random friendly fire. Zeeling, putting on his best innocent face, casually asked, "Hey, why'd you dodge? I was just trying to give you a helpful buff." But a sinister growl began to rumble up from the brand new pit he'd just created, as the glowing silhouette of a massive beast started to rise. Before Qi Yin could even process what was happening, a savage, 2-headed lion exploded from the chasm, charging straight for her at an insane speed. A system window popped up, helpfully identifying the beast as a level 11, D-class, twin-headed violent lion. The shock of a sealed monster this powerful suddenly being unleashed left Qi Yin completely frozen in terror. The moment that immense wave of demonic energy flared up, Bai instantly whipped around, his focus snapping over to the commotion on Qi Yin's path. The twin-headed lion, now completely out of the hole, let out a deafening roar as its entire body erupted in flames. Running purely on instinct, Qi Yin thrust her hands forward, desperately trying to ensnare the beast with her thorny vines. But the lion's inferno was on another level, effortlessly incinerating her vines and snapping them like twigs. With nothing left in its way, the monster lunged forward, its massive jaws gaping wide, ready to swallow her whole. Paralyzed with fear, all Qiang could think was, "This is it." Meanwhile, from a comfy distance, Zeeling smirked like the world's biggest troll, knocking another arrow just to pour gasoline on the fire. But right as the lion was about to turn Qiang into a snack, Bai slammed the button on his accelerate skill. A system notification popped up, confirming a sweet 50% temporary boost to his speed. He became a literal blur, rocketing forward to intercept the flaming beast in midair. That sudden burst of speed totally blindsided Zeeling. In less than a blink, Bai yeeted Qi out of harm's way, redlining his own agility before popping his flash blink effect, letting him phase straight through the lion's attack to deliver a nasty-looking smackdown right on its dome. The bone-shattering impact sent the colossal monster stumbling backward as Bai stuck a perfect 10-point landing, planting himself between the beast and a totally gobsmacked Qi Yin, his huge blade at the ready. Even so, Bai was genuinely shocked by how insanely fast this D-class monster was. Realizing this was going to be a real headache, Zeeling watched the whole show with a sickeningly smug grin. He was thinking, "Heh, I know this dungeon like the back of my hand." He knew that while most D-class mobs were locked up tight, there was always one rogue twin-headed lion that spawns in this area. He was practically cackling to himself, absolutely certain that no matter how cocky these newbies were, they didn't have a prayer against a times real times D-class threat. And then, he thought about the final, delicious piece of his little scheme. This lion wasn't just any lion, it was buffed with his own skills. A crimson status window materialized over the raging beast, proving Zeiling's dirty trick. The lion was now in a light arrow state, meaning its gravity was nerfed, while its damage and speed were cranked up to 11. Zeiling mentally dubbed it the fastest twin-headed lion in existence, his little masterpiece. But wait, there's more. Another status window showed it was also berserk, giving it another 10% attack and a whopping 50% speed boost. Staring down this roided out, impossible to kill monster, Bai's face went dead serious. He gripped the dagger he'd taken from his father's safe and wondered, damn, am I really gonna have to show my hand just to get out of this alive? Turning to Chi, he barked, get back, fall back to a safe spot. This thing is way out of your league. Chi just watched, fuming at herself and cursing the fact that she'd frozen up like a coward just moments ago. The gigantic, flame-wreathed, twin-headed lion launched itself into the sky, aiming to come down on Bai Yi and Qi Yin like a two-headed meteor. Just as Bai Yi braced himself to take it on solo, with a look that could kill, Qi Yin shot her hand out and bellowed the name of her spell, Vine Wall. And just like that, a gnarly mess of thorny vines erupted from the dirt, snagging the big kitty mid-pounce and hog-tying it like a pro. But she wasn't done. Qi Yin dumped even more juice into her spell, screaming for a second helping. With one last battle cry, she unleashed a triple-decker vine wall, completely gift-wrapping the fiery furball and putting its attack on pause. Bai Yi just stared, totally floored by her sudden power-up. She turned to him and asked if she could get in on the action, swearing she wouldn't be dead weight. She was all fired up, declaring that even if it was just a D-class scrub, she wanted to take it down with him. Meanwhile, on the sidelines, Xiling was watching this whole thing like, are you for real? The girl had to be nuts, right? She was almost Lion Chow just a few seconds ago. A tiny smirk played on Bai Yi's lips as he commented on how fast she'd gotten her nerve back. Heh, and here I thought you'd be frozen solid with fear, he mused. But Qi Yin shot back with a newfound swagger, declaring, I've grinded way too hard to get wiped out here. So there they stood, shoulder to shoulder, ready to take on the trussed-up D-class monster. Time for the main event to finally kick off. Qi Yin flashed Bai Yi, a grin full of confidence, and said she was putting all her faith in him. With you here, there's no way I'm gonna kick the bucket. But Bai Yi, ever the party pooper, immediately brought her back down to earth. Hey now, you just blew a massive load of mana on that triple-layer special. Your energy bar's gotta be low. I know, she replied simply. And that little exchange sent Bai Yi spiraling down memory lane, back to the Qi Yin from his past life. Even way back then, she was the absolute queen bee of their middle school. The scene flashed back to a younger Qi Yin, standing in front of the class with zero hesitation, announcing her dream was to join the Divine Guild and become a divine priest. Bai Yi remembered her being this beacon of confidence, optimism, and just plain niceness. She hailed from some big-shot family, but you'd never know it. She was super friendly and totally nailed her duties as class president. He'd lost touch with her later on in his first run-through, and just figured she settled into some boring, normal life. But in this new timeline, one thing was crystal clear. This girl was someone he could actually count on, and with a solid party member like her, Bai Yi was pretty sure he could breeze through this assessment without having to reveal his own OP-level cheat codes. Meanwhile, Xiling, chilling on the sidelines like he was watching a bad movie, just snorted at their little teamwork makes the dream work moment. He totally sneered, thinking, are these clowns for real? They actually think they can handle this thing? That flimsy vine wall wouldn't last more than a few seconds. Real fights aren't won with happy thoughts and friendship, you idiots. He fumed internally, absolutely certain that with their pathetic level of power, they stood zero chance against the souped-up D-class monster he'd sixed on them. A nasty little smirk crept onto his face. Yeah, Xiling decided he'd just hang back and watch the show. He'd let them squirm and get wrecked, and only when they were crying and begging for their glorious senior to save them would he make his grand entrance. That's when he'd teach them a very painful lesson about showing some respect to their elders. Literally, the second that smug thought popped into his head, the two-headed lion let out a world-ending roar, and, with a huge power-up flex, absolutely shredded the vines holding it back. So, with a seriously ticked-off monster now on the loose, Bai Yi instantly cooked up a strat. He yelled to Qin that he'd be the bait, calling out the lion's nuclear attribute, and told her to get ready for the perfect kill shot opportunity. Qi Yin got it in a heartbeat. With a battle cry, they split up, goading the fire-breathing lion into a totally reckless charge. Bai Yi knew the score. Since he was the one who'd landed the first real hit, all of that monster's aggro would be laser-focused on him. He masterfully kited the furious beast towards a huge pool of water at the cavern's edge. Without a second thought, he swan-dived right in, and the lion, completely blinded by rage, cannonballed in right behind him. Underwater, Bai Yi zipped around with his insane speed, making a complete fool of the now clumsy, waterlogged beast. He spotted the perfect opening as the lion flailed around in the water, totally out of its element, and he yelled up to Qi Yin, "It's go time." Reacting in a flash to his signal, Qi Yin unleashed her Vine Wall spell. The The second the lion burst out of the water, the dripping wet beast and its fiery aura got completely snagged by the thorny vines. It roared in pure frustration, its power obviously nerfed. With a look of intense focus, Qi Yin commanded the vines to squeeze the life out of it. The plan was a total masterpiece. The water had doused the lion's fire abilities and totally messed with its nuclear core. System notifications popped up, confirming its berserk and nuclear states had fizzled out, leaving it poisoned and completely immobilized. Just then, Bai Yi smoothly emerged from the water, landing on the shore right next to her. He struck a pose with his massive blade, looking cocky as ever. He yelled that the beast had nowhere left to run, and it was time to finish this test and snag that #1 spot. Meanwhile, Xiling was lurking in the bushes, watching the whole thing go down, his face a priceless picture of disbelief. He was totally bugging out, wondering how a single layer of vines managed to trap that beefy lion, especially since he knew he would have had a hard time fighting that thing himself. And he was the one who buffed the damn thing in the first place. All he could do was stand there and curse under his breath. Meanwhile, back in the spectators' lounge, the teachers and staff were totally geeking out over this brilliant strategy. One of the instructors broke down the genius, yet simple, logic behind it. They baited the nuclear-type lion into the water, which basically nerfed its core skills while giving a massive boost to Qian's plant-based powers. Bai Yi's teacher was practically glowing with pride, praising his quick thinking and awesome leadership, pointing out how he used basic elemental counters and solid teamwork to take down a monster that was way out of their league. The staff pretty much agreed that the #1 spot was in the bag. All that was left was the final, glorious kill shot. They were buzzing, saying that once this footage hit the guild, Bai Yi could actually break the Academy's all-time high score. But right as everyone held their breath for the final blow, the live feed just died. Everyone was left staring at a black screen, completely bewildered. Like, why would the broadcast cut out right at the most epic part? Back in the dungeon, though, the reason was crystal clear. The recording drone was a smoking, busted wreck on the floor. And standing right there was Zelling, with a nasty smirk on his face and a glowing energy bow in his hands. He figured, hey, no video evidence, Bai Yi can kiss that high score goodbye. With that little problem taken care of, a system notification popped up, confirming their victory over the level 11 D-class beast, awarding them a cool 100 experience points. Bai Yi immediately gave props to Qi Yin, telling her that her abilities were the real MVP. She got all modest, saying she just did what he told her to do, but Bai Yi shut that down real quick. He explained it was her own hardcore training that jacked up her elemental resistance, letting her unleash a single skill with so much oomph. Qian, however, just stared at him with a blank look, repeating, elemental resistance? Like she'd never heard the words before in her life. And right on cue, a super salty Xiling stomped out from his hiding spot. He got all high and mighty, telling them the boss was toast, so they could save their little chit-chat for later. But Bai Yi and Qi Yin just turned to give him a cold, completely unimpressed stare. Xiling whined that he'd had enough of their little games. Bai Yi, with absolutely zero chill, fired back at Xiling, asking if the guy even realized the massive danger he'd caused by sicking a souped-up D-class monster on a couple of freshmen. Xiling, trying to look away, immediately started making excuses, claiming he meant to buff Qi Yin, but she just had times to dodge. Bai Yi instantly shut that garbage down, saying his skills must be a complete joke if he couldn't even aim straight. With a glare that could cut glass, Bai Yi questioned how he could even call himself an archer, with aim that pathetic. Qi Yin, now equally furious, decided to pile on, remarking it was no wonder he couldn't even sniff the main school team. Totally triggered by their roasts, Xiling whipped around, his energy bow flaring as he snarled, "What did you just say?" Not even flinching, Bai Yi stepped right in front of Qi Yin, ready to block anything he threw at them. Overwhelmed by their sheer nerve, Xiling's rage just seemed to fizzle into petty resentment. He slowly lowered his bow, muttering some lame threat about how this wasn't over. Turning his back like a total drama queen, he gave one last "you'll see" before storming off towards the dungeon exit. The second he was gone, Bai Yi and Qi Yin walked over to the trash drone Xiling had wrecked. Qi Yin, still steaming, grumbled about what a terrible personality their senior had. She then spotted Bai Yi inspecting the busted machine and asked what in the world he was doing. Bai Yi explained their supervisor smashed the camera to make sure they couldn't get a high score. Since nobody was watching anymore, Xiling had to dip and go grab a new drone. Bai Yi then pointed out that everyone else was way off in their own separate dungeons, which bought them a whole lot of time. With a sly, mischievous grin, Bai Yi said that Zealing had actually done them a huge favor. He now had the perfect opportunity to get the rest of his plan in motion. Qi Yin could only gape at him, totally bewildered, asking what he meant and what crazy thing he was about to do. Bai Yi led Qi Yin back to the huge central chamber, stopping before the massive, pulsing red seal that was holding back the dungeon's real heavy hitters. Turning to her, he asked if she could promise to keep what was about to happen top secret. He added with a smirk, saying nobody would buy her story anyway. Qi, totally freaked out and confused, stuttered out, asking what in the world he was plotting. Then, we flash back to that shady alleyway meeting between Bai Yi and Hong Qian. The terms of Bai Yi's deal were laid bare. In exchange for a power-up, Hong had to cough up the unsealing demon stone, the one his uncle, the dean, was holding onto. And there was Bai Yi, holding that exact stone, a shimmering crystal etched with glowing runes. Then he dropped the bombshell, his real, insane goal. He was going to use the stone to completely bust open the Spirit Jade dungeon. He slapped the crystal right onto the central altar, and instantly, this wicked dark red energy started swirling all around him. Qi absolutely lost it, screaming that he couldn't do that. She reminded him it was a D-class dungeon, for crying out loud, and if he shattered that seal, every single high-level monster would be unleashed at once. As the dark energy flared up, threatening to blow the seal to bits, Bai Yi just casually told her not to sweat it. He explained that the monster's power would still be nerfed a bit by the leftover energy from the seal. Qi wasn't buying it, shooting back that even with a handicap, there was no way the two of them could take on that many D-class monsters. Who said anything about two people? Bai Yi replied, cool as a cucumber. As the words left his mouth, a red string bracelet on his wrist started to pulse with light, and a massive fiery aura exploded around him. All Qi could do was gawk, sputtering in total disbelief at what she was seeing. Bai Yi stood there, transformed from a warrior into a full-blown mage, holding a glowing staff and crackling with magical energy. Qi's eyes bulged out of her head as she shrieked, demanding to know how in the hell he could be a mage. As a powerful red aura engulfed him, Bai Yi told a completely stunned Qi to hang back by the exit and stay safe. In a flash, the magical chains imprisoning the beasts shattered with a deafening boom, and 3 vicious, flame-wreathed lions burst out, charging straight for them. Completely terrified, Qi screamed for Bai Yi to watch out, throwing a hand out like she could shield him. But Bai Yi didn't even flinch, just calmly faced down the charging beasts. Gripping his staff, he began to summon cloud elemental power, while the lions let out a deafening roar. A system notification popped up, confirming his class change to E-class Cloud Element Mage. With a look of pure focus on his face, he pops his spell, and a wicked wave of frost just explodes around the charging mobs. Qi Yin's jaw is on the floor, realizing Bai Yi is rocking a red-tier profession. Like, top of the food chain level. She's thinking, dude, I was struggling to handle just one of those things. And this guy. Bai Yi just casually wrangled all 3 at once, flash freezing them into a giant frosty paperweight. Staring at the new ice sculpture, Bai casually mentions that after being cooped up for so long, it was a no-brainer they'd all stampede out at once. Then, with this crazy look in his eye, he says he's gonna need a bigger playground for what he's about to pull. Getting the hint, Qian balls up her fists and is totally on board with Bai's plan, scrambling back to the cheap seats. And right on cue, a fresh wave of Fire Panther-looking things bursts out of the broken seal, their paws pounding the dirt as they blitz forward, eyes glowing like demonic headlights. Then, the big boss shows up, a way bigger and meaner-looking monster, a D-class fierce flame leopard, just materializing and looming over Bai like a skyscraper. Bai doesn't even flinch, just squares up with the beast. He's already running the numbers, clocking that even though they're D-class, their stats are nerfed by half from being locked up for ages. Being a mage and all, he taps into his ice-forming skill, a slick move that literally weaponizes the humidity to lock down his enemies. He's thinking, alright, step 1, put 'em all on lockdown. Just as a monster's giant shadow swallows him whole, Bai's like, okay, time for a different flavor of pain. A system window pops up, and just like that, he swaps back to his nuclear warrior class, gearing up to go full-on brawler. Now he's back in his nuclear warrior getup. Bai jukes a massive lunge from some D-class fire sword beast, a green aura flaring as he sidesteps the attack by a hair. Sporting a smug-as-heck grin, he's totally roasting the beast in his head for trying to sneak up on him. As another flaming kitty cat makes a run for it, Bai pops a skill, vanishing in a flash of green light right as the monster smashes the spot where he used to be. And then, in a total flex of power, he blips back into existence, already swapped back to his cloud element mage class, staff at the ready, already winding up for another spell. The camera zooms in on one of the beasts, now a permanent resident of a jagged, cracked ice prison. Watching from her safe spot, Qian is absolutely floored. Like, how is he just hot-swapping classes like it's nothing? And that's when it hits her. A real game-changing epiphany. Watching him in action, it finally clicks for her why he was so dead set on grinding in that element room. The madman was literally just beefing up his elemental resistance. She thinks back on her own magic, realizing how she used to think being strong was all about raw power and just spamming spells. But now, after witnessing Bai's absolute clinic on the battlefield, she gets it real strength isn't about having power, it's about having total control over it. Qi Yin mulls it over. Elemental power is a raw, untamed force of nature, a real beast to get a handle on. It's crystal clear to her now. Only by mastering that wild energy can you unlock a whole new playbook of insane and versatile techniques. Her jaw practically hits the floor as she watches, in total awe as Bai casually bends the very ice he created to his will. He's taking a rookie-level skill and turning it into a death machine, launching a barrage of ice shards at the helpless beasts. A fire of understanding and newfound resolve lights up in Qian's eyes, while Bai Yi just stands there, looking bored. The whole freaking horde of monsters is trapped, wrecked, and utterly defeated inside his icy prison. It's a straight-up monument to his insane skill, and all Qian can do is stare, completely floored that Bai Yi has already achieved such perfect mastery of his abilities. Seeing Bai Yi's absolute dominion on display, Qi Yin lowers her head, her fist clenching tight. A shadow crosses her face as the thought hits her. He's already left them all in the dust. But then, as she really lets his overwhelming power sink in, her look of despair melts away, replaced by a soft, blushing smile as she admits to herself, "Damn, he is so cool." Right on cue, the entire cave starts to shake from the impact of a single, thunderous footstep. And from the deepest shadows of the cave, the dungeon's real times, final boss makes its grand entrance. It's the Spirit Jade Demon Cave Lord, a monstrous D-class fierce mammoth, its eyes glowing an ominous red and radiating a seriously nasty aura. A status window pops up, confirming its level and helpfully pointing out that its stats are halved because it's still sealed. Now, any normal student would be soiling their pants, but Bai just stares it down, his own eyes glowing with intensity. He's not even a little bit fazed. In fact, he's thinking, "About time you showed up." This guy knew it was coming all along. The mammoth lets out a deafening roar and charges straight ahead, effortlessly leaping over the icy wreckage containing the rest of the defeated mob. Bai's response? A swirl of green energy erupts around him as he switches back to his nuclear warrior class. He declares in his mind that the rare drop he's been looking for is on this exact beast. And he's not backing down, bracing himself for the final showdown as this absolute unit of a mammoth comes barreling at him. Then, in a totally bonkers display of agility, Bai launches himself into the air and lines up a perfect shot, slamming a nasty hit right on a weak spot on the mammoth's 5-head, scoring a juicy critical hit that makes the red stuff fly. Bai then shoves his glowy green shank deep into the mammoth's super thick skin, making sure this big furry oaf knows he means business. He sticks the landing like an Olympic gymnast while the giant beast stumbles back, leaking from a few new holes. Sporting a serious look and some of the mammoth splatter on his face, Bai's thinking to himself, "Wait, this sealed level 15 mammoth is actually a bigger pushover than that level 10 monkey boss?" Screaming in agony, the wounded mammoth throws a tantrum with its giant head and charges at Bai in a total rage quit moment, its heavy stomps literally redecorating the floor with cracks. But Bai ain't even phased, zipping around like he's got cheat codes enabled, unleashing a non-stop combo and just spamming critical hits on all the monster's squishy bits. The mammoth just can't handle the heat and finally starts to wobble, its huge frame getting ready to kiss the floor. And just as he's about to win, you guessed it, a brand new power decides to make an appearance. His eye starts glowing like a golden flashlight, and bam, he's rocking a brand new fiery Super Saiyan aura. He gets his dagger ready, clearly about to drop the most disrespectful finishing move of all time. He flips the switch on his title, 1 against 100, because why not? And Bai unleashes his ultimate skill, Sanctuary. A ridiculously huge, horizontal wave of golden energy just explodes out of him, blasting through the cave and swallowing up the mammoth and every other poor sap monster standing around. All the colossal mammoth can do is scream like a baby, as this overwhelming power just completely erases it. This attack is so busted that it doesn't just nuke the final boss, it also vaporizes all the other critters still chilling in Bai's ice sculptures, one-shotting every last one of them. And here comes the notification spam from the system, confirming he just wiped out a bunch of D-class monsters, some two-headed lions, a few angry-looking flame leopards, and some fire sword beasties, and it's raining hundreds of experience points for every single kill. The last pop-up confirms he took down the level 15 D-class angry mammoth, which drops a massive 1,000 experience points. On top of that, he loots some seriously valuable materials, including some fiery beast bones and a high-grade goodie called the Jade Tooth, used for forging E-class. Nuclear weapons? Okay. Sure. So there he is, standing in a now sparkling clean dungeon. Bai Yi casually holds a crescent of pure golden energy in his hand, while his personal status screen lights up, showing a ridiculous EXP gain across his flower, cloud, nuclear, and stellar element bars. With his secret mission apparently finished, he dismisses the golden energy with a lazy flick of his wrist and turns to bounce. As he's walking off like he owns the place, he glances down and spots a peculiar item where the mammoth's body just vanished, a pink, yin-yang shaped stone. A system notification pings, identifying the loot drop as the responsive jade stone, one of a pair of jade stones with a very special function. Staring down at his prize, Bai Yi thinks to himself that he's finally snagged it. Revealing this little trinket was his actual reason for unsealing this whole chaotic dungeon. After his complete and utter domination, Bai Yi is absolutely showered with rewards. System notifications start spamming his screen, confirming his insane power-up. His nuclear warrior class is now D-class level 13, and his cloud element mage class has hit D-class level 11. While checking out his beefed-up stats and holding the responsive jade stone, he smirks, satisfied that even his mage profession got a piece of the action. His 1 against 100 title has also evolved into the much cooler one-man army, which now juices him with a 20% boost to all attributes and a 10% lifesteal effect when he's fighting solo. Meanwhile, Qi Yin is just wandering silently through the cavern, now littered with the corpses of defeated monsters, still trying to process the god-tier power she just witnessed. Bai Yi saunters over to her and calls out her name. With a deadpan expression, he reminds her about her promise to keep what she saw under wraps. Blindsided, all Qi Yin can say is, "Huh?" right as a notification pops up for her, showing she got a pity level up, hitting E-class level 7 in her flower element mage profession. Back at the academy, the massive energy surge from the busted seal has sent the entire staff into a code red meltdown. The teachers, including Bai Yi's own homeroom teacher, are seen sprinting down the halls like headless chickens, with the teacher yelling they've never detected an energy surge this massive before. As they practically skid around a corner towards the dungeon entrance, they run smack into Xiling, who is just calmly taking a stroll. The teacher confronts him, basically shouting, "Why aren't you in there protecting the newbies?" Before Xiling can even open his mouth to answer, the teacher screams, "The seal is broken, we don't have time for this." He and the other staff members practically trample a shocked Xiling, rushing off to handle the emergency. Now, alone in the hall, Xiling's fake look of horror morphs into a sick, twisted smirk as he starts cackling. He thinks to himself that payback showed up a whole lot sooner than he ever dreamed. The teachers come barreling into the dungeon cavern, screaming Bai and Qian's names at the top of their lungs. They freeze in their tracks when they spot the two students just standing there, completely fine. The lead teacher can only sputter, totally baffled, as Bai calmly says, "Hello." He even has the nerve to ask what brings them all the way down here. The bewildered teacher's eyes dart past them to the main seal in the back, which is perfectly untouched. He mutters out loud, wondering if the monitoring system just had a massive glitch. With everyone relieved, the kids are safe. The scene cuts to Friday, May 29th, just before school lets out, where Xiling is meeting the green-haired vice-captain of the ultimate school team. With a ridiculously smug grin on his face, Xiling asks if the mountain of materials he submitted is finally enough to lock down that last open slot on the team. The vice-captain, however, just gives a little smile and an apology. He breaks the news that their captain already picked somebody else. Xiling is floored and absolutely livid, demanding to know who could possibly have been chosen over him as he grabs the vice-captain. He's yelling that the spot was reserved for the most valuable player, basically screaming about how his own strength and background weren't good enough. Right on cue, A woman's voice from the doorway cuts in, saying they've already found their most valuable person. A super confident woman with brown hair, the team captain, strolls into the room with a smirk. A status window pops up, identifying her as Ling Yua, a golden lightning assassin with a level that's completely unknown. She casually remarks that this student named Bei Yi is a pretty interesting guy, revealing he's the one who caught her eye and snagged the spot. The story then jumps to Friday evening, May 29th, at a noodle stall on the street. Inspector Chen Jinwu is sitting across from Bei's father, Bing Shang. Chen Jinwu, taking a drag from his smoke, warns Ling Shang not to stir up any more crap, reminding him he pulled a lot of strings to spring him from the joint early. While slurping his noodles, Ling Shang casually agrees that he gets it, but his face suddenly darkens into a venomous glare. The second the inspector's back is turned, Chen Jinwu slides in close, whispering a hot tip that Dean Honggang is set to show up next Friday. He's all like, "You get what I'm saying, right?" But Ling just hits him with a casual, "Dude, chill." Right on cue, Chen Jinwu's phone starts blowing up. It's the big boss calling. Looking totally ticked off, Chen Jinwu shoves his chair back and gets ready to bounce, grumbling to Ling Shang that he's got to get back to the squad and that he should probably head home soon too. Watching the inspector stomp off, a smirk plays on Bing Shan's lips. Oh yeah, definitely times going home soon. As he keeps shoveling food in his mouth, his face contorts into a full-on villainous scowl. His eyes practically ignite with a menacing red glow just thinking about his little homecoming. And boom, a system message pops up. Warning, a fateful encounter is imminent, ETA, sooner than you think. Next up, a lore drop. The info panel breaks down the legend of the responsive Jade Stone. Apparently, it's all about this OP master of a fierce mammoth, who simped hard for a girl and crafted this magical teleporting jade as a gift. But wait, there's a plot twist. The dude found a new girl and straight up ghosted the first one, ditching her and the legendary item in some random dungeon. Savage. Back at his old crib, he finds it completely deserted, and his rage meter just redlines. He starts roaring, demanding to know where his wife and son have scurried off to. In a total meltdown, he punts a poor, unsuspecting stool across the room, screaming every curse in the book, absolutely livid they had the nerve to hide. His fury cranks up to 11 as he swears that, when he finds them, he's going to make them permanently regret it. He emphasizes this point by introducing his fist to a mirror, shattering it instantly. Meanwhile, in a much safer new apartment, Bei Yi presents his mom with the responsive jade stone he snagged from that dungeon run. He hands her one half of the set, beautifully crafted into a necklace, telling her to keep it on, always. Then, with a comforting grin, he reveals he's got the matching stone. Bai then explains the item's special ability. If she's ever in a jam, all she has to do is crush the stone, and he'll get the ping. This allows him to basically teleport right to her location. He gently takes her hands and admits he couldn't rest easy without giving her this ultimate panic button. As his mom clutches the necklace, Bai has a somber thought. She's never had nice things like jewelry or any of the simple joys she deserves. But his mom, ever the worrier, is more concerned about him. Casually drops a hint that he shouldn't be wasting his entire weekend playing babysitter for her. She's basically pushing him to go out and act his age, have some fun with friends. Bei just flashes a smile and tells her it's no big deal, claiming he's got zero need for any of that social stuff. Yeah, that answer totally didn't land well with her. Instead, she gets this super worried look and lays down the law. Everyone needs a crew, some important people in their corner. And just like that, her words hit the pause button on his brain, shutting him up completely. He turns his back, chewing on her whole important people speech, as his mind immediately zaps back to his previous life. And bam, a flashback hits him of his old divine core squad. Ling, Yui, and Han, Xiaoling, and Lucian, all popping up in his head like ghosts. A heavy dose of the feels hits him hard as he wonders if he'll ever get to see them again in this screwed-up timeline. Late that night, at precisely 11:58 p.m., Bai finds himself standing in front of a wild D-class demon cave. He thinks to himself that with the responsive jade stone basically acting as a bodyguard for his mom, he can finally stop worrying and get down to business. This is another one of those secret cheat code dungeons he remembers from his past life, the kind that only pops open for a measly 1 hour a night, between midnight and 1 a.m., leaving him almost no time to mess around. Now that his mom's got top-tier security, he can go all in on the grind. Dagger out, he dives headfirst into the demonic portal without a second thought. The moment he's in, his brain treats him to another flashback. He remembers that even when he was a top-tier warrior, a total beast who could solo the D-class blood flowers in this very cave, he was still completely useless when it came to saving his team. That gut-wrenching memory of watching his friends get wiped bubbles back up, his mom's whole "you need friends" speech starts ringing in his ears again, but the fresh hell memory of betrayal makes him want to laugh in the face of that naive idea. So, he channels all that angst into pure, unadulterated power and launches himself into the fray, slamming into one of the freaky plant monsters. With a blur of ridiculously fast slices, he absolutely demolishes the bloodflower. A system notification pops up, confirming the kill, netting him a cool 260 experience points and 3 bloodflower petals. As he casually scoops up his loot, he scoffs at the very idea of needing friends, thinking, yeah, all they did was bring a world of hurt. Bai starts spiraling, thinking about how pointless all his hard work was. It hits him that no matter how overpowered he got, if the gods decided to just say nope, he and his entire squad were toast. He funnels this raw frustration right back into the fight, effortlessly dodging a haymaker from one of the huge beasts with a burst of speed so insane it cracks the very ground beneath him. He's hit with a flashback of how, for all their supposed might, his comrades ended up as worm food without so much as a decent funeral. That rage channels straight into his blade, delivering a nasty crit to the monster's face. He sticks the landing, of course, and a little pop-up window confirms the kill and the sweet, sweet EXP. Yeah, this is the only way. He's got to get stupidly strong. He cranks his speed up to 11, bobbing and weaving through a whole forest of demonic tentacles. Gritting his teeth, he vows to get so overpowered that everyone else looks like a level 1 noob. Even while a bunch of critters are using him as a chew toy. But a little nibbling won't stop him, his death stare is on point. Time for a little payback, he thinks, unleashing a blender of an attack, turning the mosh pit of monsters into a shower of monster confetti. The kill feed is going absolutely bonkers, and the EXP bar is skyrocketing. He's looking like a mess, covered in gore, and literally chewing on a monster's tentacle. He decides this is the only way to play. Go all in, life on the line, and don't forget to loot the good stuff like corpse toxin from the bodies. Then his brain kicks in, reminding him how much he currently sucks. Seriously, he's way too squishy right now. He probably couldn't even take his old man, Bing, in a fight at this point. And that's not even counting the times real times big bads, like that one backstabbing prodigy from his past life. Wiping some monster guts off his chin, he has a moment of grim clarity. He gets it now. There's no cheat code, no easy mode for him. He's got to face tank every single enemy that comes his way, no running allowed. With that fresh dose of masochistic resolve, he plants his feet in front of what looks like an all-you-can-kill monster buffet, and he's ready to eat. Facing down this ridiculous mob of demon spawn, Bei decides it's time to stop holding back. He pops his ultimate skill, Sanctuary, and yeets his dagger with the force of a freight train. A freaking tsunami of golden, holy energy just explodes from his blade. It completely flash fries the creatures, who screech like they just stubbed their pinky toe. The whole swarm gets deleted instantly, and a waterfall of kill notifications floods his vision, dinging up hundreds of EXP for every single bloodflower and corpse orchid he just vaporized. After that massive nuke, Bei touches down, still glowing like a divine Christmas tree, panting like he just ran a marathon. He's a bloody mess, but the dude's still got that murder hobo look in his eye. He checks the clock and, oh crap, realizes the demon cave is gonna slam its doors shut in just 20 minutes. His eyes scan the now empty battlefield and lock onto the main event, the dungeon boss. The man's on the clock and knows he's gotta blitz this boss before time's up. It's Saturday, May 30th, at 12:39 in the morning, and Bai is staring down the final boss of this whole dungeon, a gigantic, tree-looking monstrosity, glowing with a nasty green aura. He gets his weapon ready, basically telling the monster, it's your turn to get wrecked. But, plot twist, the boss doesn't play along. Instead, it just zips away with some seriously insane speed, vanishing in a flash of green. Turns out, this thing is a level 20 D-class lord named Yaya Warren, and it pops back into existence just to launch a brutal assault, making a totally shocked Bai dive for his life. Shaking it off, Bai swings back with a massive counter, and cleanly lops off one of the monster's arms. But, of course, that mission accomplished feeling lasts for about 5 seconds. The boss is totally unbothered, just charging up some green energy in its other hand. Next thing you know, it pops a self-healing skill, and Bai's jaw hits the floor, as the arm just grows right back in seconds. He's like, Are you kidding me with this regen? But before he can even complain to the devs, Yaya Warren smashes its fist into the ground, and a forest of spiky vines shoots up from the floor. So, even with the ridiculous healing factor and the pointy vine situation, Bai squares up to face the creature, looking cool as a cucumber. However, his whole vibe shatters when the bloodflower mobs he already clapped start crawling out of the ground again, roaring back to life. He just stares, completely baffled, as the reanimated beasts rush him, thinking, how in the world are these guys back on their feet? He knows for a fact that a D-class lord shouldn't have a raise the dead skill in its kit, so this whole messed up situation is seriously freaking him out. And while he's distracted by the incoming zombie flower parade, a shadowy whip thing cracks out of nowhere from his blind spot. His eyes go wide as the attack slams right into him, skewering him clean through the side with a splash of the red stuff. The impact sends him staggering back, with a dark tendril sticking right out of him. And as he's struggling, the awful truth dawns on him. A second, almost identical lord just showed up to the party. A system window pops up, identifying this new party crasher as Chi Wuren, the twin brother of Yaren. Yep, another level 20 D-class lord. Baiyi's gritting his teeth, trying to ignore the new hole in his body, realizing the dungeon just trolled him with a 2-for-1 boss fight. The two twin lords are now standing side by side. You've got Yaren, the green guy, all healed up and looking smug, and Chiwon, the purple punk who just sucker punched him, backed into a corner and looking like he'd been redecorating with his own blood. Baiyi puts on his big boy game face. His eyes practically glow with that I ain't hearin' no bell kind of power. But whoops, inside this secret little dungeon, the clock is ticking down. At 12:59 in the morning on Saturday, the demonic gateway starts to get all glitchy. A moment later, at 1 o'clock sharp, the front door to this hellhole slams shut, leaving him locked in with absolutely no way out. Flash forward to later that day, Saturday, May 30th, at 6 in the evening, and the weather outside is throwing a full-blown tantrum. Inside their swanky new apartment, Baiyi's mom is pacing a trench into the floor. She's glued to the window, worrying because her son has been completely off the grid all day, ghosting her messages and calls. Her mind immediately jumps to the conclusion that he's off doing something stupid and life-threatening again. So, naturally, she decides it's time for a rescue mission. She walks out of the apartment and straight into the stormy night, right where a shady character has been camping out. A nasty voice sneers, dropping a snide comment about how well she and her son are doing for themselves. And the award for most unwelcome blast from the past goes to Ling Shen. He makes his grand entrance by dropping empty liquor bottles, standing there soaked to the bone and marinating in his own fury. He's muttering under his breath about how they had the nerve to level up their living situation behind his back. As lightning dramatically flashes across the sky, he glares up at the building with pure disgust. Found a nice place? He sneers, his face a perfect picture of unhinged, grade-A rage. His eyes are literally glowing with bad intentions. Meanwhile, Baiyi's mom breezes through the security gate and steps outside. And then, she just freezes solid. A massive wave of "oh crap" washes over her as she instinctively clutches the little jade danger detector around her neck. Her eyes go wide with the terrifying realization she's just walked into a boss fight. Cut back to the demon cave lockdown. Our boy Baiyi is running on fumes, but is still in the fight, panting as he grips his oversized blade. He's thinking, this has to be the 5th freaking wave of these mobs. No matter how many times he mows them down, they just keep respawning like annoying pop-up ads. Another resurrected bloodflower lunges, and he casually carves it in half. But the system notification that pops up is basically a troll, showing he's only earning a single experience point per kill. It finally clicks that farming these trash mobs is a complete waste of stamina, yielding 0 good EXP or loot drops. With this sudden burst of insight, he figures he has to find and wreck whatever is acting as their personal respawn point. His eyes immediately lock onto the two glowing D-class mini-bosses, Yorin and Chi Warren, pinpointing them as the source. This crazy regenerative power is coming straight from the bosses themselves. Alright, new game plan. Baiyi completely ignores the respawning mob. He becomes a total blur, blasting past the cannon fodder and charging straight for one of the twin lords, T. Warren, to finally end this ridiculous fight. With laser-like focus, Baiyi locks onto his target, lunging forward and plunging his blade deep into Chi Warren's body, landing a series of devastating stabs that make the monster crack and shatter like glass. Except, his all-out attack was completely useless. He just watches as the Lord's wounds magically seal up, its body regenerating in a flash of obnoxious green light. Then it hits him. The other twin, Ya Warren, is playing pocket healer from the sidelines, constantly patching up his brother. Bai remembers the other twin also had that instant heal hack, even after he literally chopped its head clean off. He can't help but notice how broken this ability is, way beyond what even an S-class healer could pull off. This gets him thinking, what's the real source of their cheat code power? He wonders if they're hooked up to some hidden battery pack. Before he can finish the thought, one of the lords pulls a vanishing act and teleports right beside him for a sucker punch. But thanks to his pro-gamer reflexes, Bai lands a perfect parry, blocking the punch like it was nothing, completely nullifying the damage. He instantly pivots into a brutal counter, slashing upwards with his blade. But as his counter lands, Bai notices something seriously weird. The boss is actually starting to learn and copy his own moves. Right after his counterattack, Bai finds himself face to face with Ya Warren. And to his utter shock, the monster actually speaks, complimenting him on how strong he is. Then, its twin teleports in for backup, and both bosses get ready for Phase 2. But something about Bai's expression has changed. He spotted something critical. His gaze shifts past the bosses as he thinks to himself, I've finally found you. A cocky smirk spreads across his face as his weapon starts to glow with power. The light bulb goes off in his head. In a plant-themed demon cave like this, the massive trees have to be the power core. He completely ignores the boss and makes a mad dash toward one of the giant glowing trees in the background. As he blows past the surprised boss, he casually slices off its arm just for the heck of it. He finally understands that the boss's insane healing is only possible because it's siphoning energy from these trees. The boss stares in total shock at its severed limb, which, for the very first time, isn't growing back, and lets out a shriek of utter disbelief. Bai's new master plan is now crystal clear. He's got to sever the boss's connection to their power source by taking an axe to these enchanted trees. He unleashes a ridiculous slash that cleaves right through a massive trunk. Bai knows that once their magical Wi-Fi is down, he can finally send them packing for good. With his brilliant new strategy locked and loaded, Bai bolts right past the twin lords, Ye Warren and Chi Warren, gunning it for the enchanted trees that are fueling their rampage. Before they can even react, a system notification dings, announcing Bai has class changed to his Cloud Element Mage profession. Lifting his staff high, he summons one heck of an ice spell, unleashing a monster wave of cold energy that flash freezes both D-class lords solid. With the bosses officially on ice, Bai lands and immediately swaps back to his nuclear warrior class, smirking because his hunch was dead on. With the bosses and their power source completely taken offline, their minions would lose their annoying ability to heal and respawn. And, just as he predicted, the resurrected bloodflowers and corpse orchids start to crumble and die permanently. Now that the twin lords are totally helpless, Bai plunges his blade straight through the ice, shattering the frozen husk of Ye Warren into a million tiny pieces. A system window pops up, confirming he's successfully smoked the level 20 D-class lord, earning him a cool 2,500 experience points, and a high-grade item called White Spirit Grass. This stuff can instantly restore half his stamina and patch up most physical wounds. With one twin lord out of the picture, the other one, Chi Warren, shatters the ice that was holding it. Bai, despite his wounds, stands his ground with a wicked green aura flaring up around him. He points his dagger at the final boss, declaring that it's the only one left on his to-do list. The massive creature looks down with a surprisingly emo expression on its face. Surrounded by flames, Tiwaran makes a totally unexpected request, pleading for Bai to just end it. Bai is completely floored, thinking he's never met a boss this eager to rage quit before. He realizes that with its brother gone, the creature no longer wants to play the game alone. Respecting its final wish, Bai decides to be a bro and grant the request. He leaps forward with incredible speed and, with a single powerful strike, slices the D-class lord clean in half. As the monster finally bites the dust, a notification confirms he has successfully offed the level 20 lord, C. Warren, and gained another 2,500 experience points, a sweet 500 experience points. Plus, he snags a high-grade material called a poison thorn, which is exactly what he needs to forge a ridiculously powerful S-class flower-type weapon. Clutching the purple loot, Bai finally lets out a sigh of relief. All that hard work paid off, as a notification pops up announcing his nuclear warrior class has hit D-class level 15. And just after wrecking those twin bosses, another ding confirms that Bai's Cloud Element Mage class has also leveled up to D-class level 13. With the final boss 6 feet under, the crimson portal to the demon cave swings back open, giving him the green light to bounce. But hold up. Before he can even take a step, a new status screen flashes before his eyes, revealing his flower element bar is totally maxed out. You know what that means, it's awakening time, baby. Bei's eyes go wide. He can't believe his flower element is already capped, as he's engulfed in a swirl of glowing green energy and a storm of colorful petals. He's left wondering what kind of ridiculously OP class he's gonna unlock this time. He remembers his last awakening hooked him up with a god-tier red profession, and a smug grin spreads across his face, hyped for what's coming next. Then, a new notification dings, revealing his new class, a measly level 1 E-class flower element summoner. His hype train immediately derails into a wreck of shock and disappointment when he sees it's just a blue-tier profession, way lower than what he was praying for. After a beat, he pulls himself together, thinking, well, at least the summoner class doesn't need insane stats, and starts wondering what its skills are even for. Right on cue, a skill description window pops up, laying out his new abilities. His active skill is Flower Spirit Contract, which lets him yoink the soul of a defeated flower-type demon and force it to be his new minion. And the passive skill, Flower Field, lets him see the ghostly souls of recently KO'd flower-type demons. Bai's interest is suddenly piqued as he scans the description, especially that part about making a contract with a demon's soul. The gears in his head start turning as he realizes the insane potential here. Bai starts wondering, could he actually form a contract with the 2 powerhouse bosses he just took down? With his flower field passive skill now kicking in, he spins around and sees the shimmering blue souls of the twin lords, Yawarin and Tivurin, just hovering over their dead bodies. A wicked grin spreads across Bai's face as he decides to shoot his shot. A notification flashes, confirming he's activating the Flower Spirit Contract skill. He thrusts his hand out towards the 2 souls and, with a cocky smirk, commands them, "Get over here." In a vortex of crackling azure energy, the souls of the twin lords are yanked toward him, forced back into their beefy physical bodies, and now, they're his brand new, legally bound minions. Cut to a miserable Saturday night around 6 p.m., where we find our favorite villain, Bing Shen, looking like a drowned rat with a shiv, skulking around the apartment complex. His eyes are practically glowing with rage, but just as he's about to start his little rampage, his phone buzzes, totally killing the mood. Completely ticked off, he snatches up the phone, only to hear the last person he expected, Inspector Chen Jin-woo. And get this, the inspector is dangling one heck of an opportunity in front of him. He's scored an invite to a fancy dinner with none other than Dean Hong Liang himself, a meal that just might be his golden ticket right back into the guild. The guy is absolutely giddy. Ling practically swears on his mother's grave he won't screw this up. He hangs up the phone with a nasty, smug grin plastered on his face, muttering about how it's a great day after all. Looks like the revenge tour is on hold. So, he figures he'll just pop over and catch up with the wifey instead. That creepy look in his eye though? Yeah, that's not going anywhere. Meanwhile, having left the apartment to find her son, Bai's mother is just standing outside, getting absolutely drenched in the downpour. She's clutching that glowing jade stone on her necklace as a wave of pure dread crashes over her. Then, a voice cuts through the rain. She spins around to see Bai, cool as a cucumber, holding an umbrella and a bag of groceries. He casually asks what in the world she's doing, standing out in a storm. She jumps, startled, but the fear on her face melts into pure, unadulterated relief to see he's okay. He just gives her a soft smile and says they should head back inside. A little later, settled into their new place, Bai's mom is admiring a gorgeous new bracelet he got for her. She thinks to herself how that silly boy of hers claimed he went out late just to buy her a present. A sad, knowing look flickers in her eyes. She knows that just because she can't speak, it doesn't mean she's blind to the insane risks he's taking for her sake. Back in his room, Bai's chilling on his bed, running a full system diagnostic on his current build. He's currently juggling 3 different classes, a green-tier nuclear warrior for when things get messy, a blue-tier flower element summoner for some crowd control, and a stupidly powerful red-tier cloud element mage. His mental status screen pops up, showing that his 2 main damage-dealing classes, the mage and the warrior, have both hit D-class, but his shiny new summoner job is still stuck in E-class newbie territory. But even with all this progress, he knows deep down, it's nowhere near enough. His mind drifted to his old man, Ling Sheng. He did the math, it had been a solid 10 days since his father was thrown in the slammer, which meant he only had 5 days left on his sentence. But knowing his dad's short fuse, Bai figured he might just punch his way to an early release, a family reunion he absolutely had to be ready for. The next day, on Sunday morning, Bai's focus sharpened to a razor's edge, a menacing red aura swirling around him. He was done hiding. That was no longer an option. He had to confront his father head-on and end this drama for good before he could get back to the real business of leveling up. Fired up by this new resolve, Bai spent the entire day pushing past his limits. A flurry of system notifications confirmed he had steamrolled through 4 hidden demon caves, 3 E-class and 1 D-class, in a ridiculously short amount of time. By Sunday afternoon, he was standing at the entrance of an even nastier D-class hidden demon cave with a big fat question mark for a threat level. Knowing he couldn't afford a break and needed to hit class like yesterday, he plunged inside without a second thought. By Sunday night, he emerged, victorious. His red aura was still pulsing as a notification confirmed the D-class cave was officially cleared. Ding! Another level up. He let out a smirk, thinking that the next time he saw his father, the power balance would be a little different. As he stood there, he sensed something new in the air and looked around, puzzled, right as a new system window popped up. It announced he'd earned the title Lone Brave for clearing 10 demon caves at a difficulty equal to or higher than his own level. This fancy new title granted him the Mark of the Brave and hinted at unlocking a Tower of the Brave in the future. Bai could only stare at the screen, wondering what the heck this new plot twist was all about. On Monday morning, June 1st, over at the Awakened Academy, Teacher Hang stood before her class, looking like she was about to drop some major bombshells. She informed her students that the final results from the combat simulation were officially in. She proudly announced that 2 of their own, Bai and Chi Yin, had snagged the first and second highest scores in the entire school. She then added that, after a deep dive into his performance, Bai had been awarded the highest score in the Academy's entire history. The news sent Chi Yin into a happy blush, while Bai just kept his usual deadpan expression. Because of their absolutely stellar performance, Teacher Huang continued, both of them have qualified for the super prestigious training camp. But wait, there's more. She then dropped an even bigger bombshell. Thanks to Bai absolutely demolishing the previous score, they were all getting a super exclusive VIP audience with the gods themselves. Bai, of course, remained completely stone-faced. The rest of the class, however, absolutely lost their minds. One student just screamed in total disbelief, pointing out that a face-to-face with the gods was a legendary honor that even top-tier priests might never get in their entire lives. Bai, though, just saw this as a convenient, unexpected shortcut. To him, this was just a bonus level, a chance to finally meet that backstabbing crew of gods way sooner than he'd planned. His buddy from middle school, completely overcome with the feels, grabbed his arm and started crying like he was in a telenovela, begging Bai not to forget about the little guys once he hit the big time. In sharp contrast, Specs just looked at him with a proud, totally genuine smile, basically saying, "Dude, I always knew you were the main character." Over in the dean's office, Honggang was having a little heart-to-heart with his nephew, Hong. The dean basically asked Hong Chen why in the world he was ditching the training camp, reminding him it was a rare opportunity to go with his own father. Hong Chen just clenched his fist, radiating pure, angsty energy. He flat-out refused, declaring that since he only managed to snag 3rd place, he didn't feel like he'd even earned the right to be there. He added that he was sick and tired of people thinking he was just riding his dad's coattails and was desperate to prove he wasn't a nepo baby. Dean Hong Liang actually looked impressed by his nephew's sudden development of a spine, commenting that the kid had some real backbone now and hoped Hong's father would finally see his son was growing up. Seizing the opportunity, Hong Qian then made a request so bold, it was almost stupid. He asked his dear uncle for the keys to the sealed D-class demon cave located in the school's back mountains. The dean just frowned, completely baffled by such a ridiculously dangerous ask. With a fiery look of determination, Hong Qiansheng announced his plan to go on a solo power leveling spree. The scene then flips over to the principal's office, where we find Zeeling desperately trying to reason with his uncle, who also happens to be the school's principal. He whined that he absolutely had to go on the training trip, playing the "I'm the only heir to our family" card. The principal, a stern-looking guy named Kui Yunqing, calmly chewed, Zeeling out for acting like a complete moron when he knew the entire family's reputation was on his shoulders. The principal's expression then got 10 shades darker as he got right in Zeeling's face, demanding to know why he supercharged a monster to attack his own juniors during the combat simulation. Caught red-handed, Xiling just stammered, his brain completely short-circuiting as he failed to come up with a single lie. The principal, absolutely livid, slammed his hand down on the desk with a thunderous crack. He bellowed that the higher-ups weren't a bunch of clowns and could see right through his pathetic little scheme. He then dropped the bombshell that he was the only times reason Xiling hadn't been kicked to the curb already. His menacing aura cranked up to max, making Xiling tremble like a scared puppy. Totally overwhelmed, Xiling collapsed to his knees, starting the waterworks and admitting he'd messed up big time. With his eyes glowing like a final boss, the principal ordered the terrified little weasel to get up. As Xiling shakily struggled back to his feet, the principal casually strolled around his desk to drop one last, juicy piece of info. He informed Xiling that his boneheaded actions had an, interesting side effect. They managed to put a certain special someone named Baiyi on the radar of the top brass. The principal revealed that the powers that be were now giving Baiyi some serious side-eye. Kun King continued to lay it all out for his nephew, explaining that Baiyi's power leveling was just way too fast. This, of course, made the head honchos think something was super fishy, and because of that, he revealed the literal gods themselves had requested a little face-to-face with Baiyi. After spelling out the stakes, the principal actually caved and granted his nephew's wish. He told his nephew he could go on the training trip, but he needed to fix his trashy attitude and learn to keep a low profile. The principal gave Xiling a final, stern warning that if he caused any more drama, not even he could save his hide. Xiling, of course, was absolutely ecstatic about the news, his face lighting up with a massive grin as he eagerly agreed to his uncle's terms. However, the second he was out the door, his expression twisted into pure villain mode. He clenched his fist, thinking to himself that Baiyi better just wait, because revenge was a dish best served on a school trip. His creepy thoughts then drifted to Ling Yui, and with a look that could spoil milk, he vowed that he'd make her his, one way or another. Fast forward to later that Monday afternoon. Right before the final bell, the classroom was buzzing with some serious hype. Baiyi's friend was holding a freaking golden envelope, yelling that it was an invite from the ultimate school team. The letter was an official, no-joke invitation for Baiyi to join their squad. An honor so huge it sent an earthquake of shock through the entire class. The other students started losing their minds, explaining this was the most OP team in the academy, and joining was a one-way ticket to the Divine Guild. Another student jumped in, adding that it was founded by the one and only golden assassin the school had produced in years. The students were completely losing it. Keep in mind, people practically sell a kidney just for a chance to join. But Baiyi? He gets a direct invite, and a high school team poaching a middle schooler is basically unheard of. Completely overwhelmed by his buddy's ridiculous level of success, Baiyi's friend just starts the waterworks all over again, wailing about how unbelievably awesome Baiyi is. In the middle of all this drama, Baiyi calmly walks over and plucks the golden invitation from his sobbing friend. Then, to the absolute jaw-dropping shock of everyone in the room, he strolls over to a nearby trash can and casually tosses the invitation inside. His friend and the other students just lose it, screaming about whether he's lost his mind for trashing such a golden opportunity. Totally unbothered by their collective freakout, Baiyi just says he's leaving and dips out of the classroom, leaving his classmates, including Specs, completely shell-shocked and silent. Later, his friend is crouched by the trash can, staring at the discarded letter and mourning the legendary opportunity that just got binned. But then, Specs saunters over with this all-knowing look on his face, asking if he seriously still doesn't get how Baiyi operates. With a quiet confidence, Specs explains that the Baiyi of today doesn't join other people's teams. He's the guy who's destined to be the leader, period. After ditching the classroom, Baiyi makes a beeline for the school's secluded back mountain. He figures that since he's got clearance for the D-Class Demon Cave, the place will be a ghost town at night, making it the absolute perfect private training ground for him. Turns out, Hong Qian is already there waiting for him, radiating a fierce, fiery red aura of determination. Baiyi just looks at him and says, "It's time. Let's head in." As Baiyi starts to warn Hong that a D-Class dungeon might be a bit too much, Hong furiously cuts him off, shouting at him to knock it off with the nonsense and insisting he's not going to be some useless liability. Baiyi mentally runs through their deal. He'd promised to teach Hong some combat skills and a shortcut to getting stronger, fast. In exchange, Hong's only job was to get him access to the school's demon caves. He's honestly a little surprised. Hong actually managed to score an all-access pass to the D-Class dungeons. The second they step inside the cave, the massive difference in their power levels is hilariously obvious. Baiyi is over here, effortlessly dicing up a gigantic dragon-like beast, while Hong gets immediately smacked to the floor by some random mob's attack, cursing his own weakness in total frustration. Looming over yet another vanquished, green glowing creature, Bai casually trolls the struggling Hong, asking if he needs a hand. Brimming with pride, Hong furiously tells him to buzz off, insisting he's got this all by himself. And so, the intense grind in the school's D-class demon cave drags on. Hong Chen-sheng, running on pure, unadulterated determination, dives headfirst into the fray with some monstrous beasts. Meanwhile, Bai's just chilling, pondering his own progress. He's thinking about that lone brave title he snagged and the mysterious Tower of the Brave it's supposed to unlock. Problem is, he knows he can't even get a peek inside until he hits class. With a look of sheer resolve, Bai admits to himself he's already cleaned out most of the secret wild demon caves he remembered from his past life, which means the school dungeons are pretty much his last resort for some quick XP. The days blur into one long, endless battle. Come Tuesday, those invitations to the ultimate school team are still chilling in the classroom trash can, a clear sign Bai is sticking to his own game plan. The D-class grind is painfully slow, though demanding an insane amount of experience. By Wednesday afternoon, the grind is still on. Hong squares up against another roaring monster, but just as it pounces, Bai has to step in, saving his butt with a massive kick that sends the beast flying. Absolutely livid, Hong screams at Bai, reminding him he specifically said, "No help." Bai just deadpans that Hong would have been monster chow if he hadn't. Despite the constant bickering, Bai's pretty pleased, figuring the experience they've farmed should be just enough for what he has in mind. Fast forward to Thursday after school, and all that relentless training finally pays off. Hong Chen-shen stumbles out of the demon cave, cheering his head off. He's ecstatic, yelling that he finally hit D-class all by himself, proclaiming, "This is way more awesome than having my family's bodyguards carry me." A few moments later, Bai strolls out too, looking completely unfazed, as a system notification pops up to announce his own level up. His nuclear warrior class has officially advanced to class. A determined glint appears in his eye. Bai knows he's finally ready for his next big challenge. A menacing shadow of his old man, Bing Shen, looms behind him as he thinks, yeah, this power should be enough to handle him now. A status window flashes, showing off his shiny new class stats, and confirming he's also unlocked a brand new skill. Later that evening, Bai's back home when his mom starts teasing him, asking if he's been coming home late because he's out on dates with some cute girl. Bai gets all flustered, trying to play it cool and insisting he's just some middle school kid. But his mom just flashes this knowing, warm smile and keeps going. She's like, it's totally normal to have a crush at your age, telling him to just man up and go for it with people he actually cares about. She warns him not to drag his feet until the chance completely slips away, because then all he'll have is a boatload of regret. And man, those words hit Bai right where it hurts. His eyes go wide as her advice really starts to sink in, and he just shuts up completely. His mind instantly jumps to a certain times girl he cares about, and as Bai mulls over his mom's little pep talk, his thoughts get yanked back to his past life. And the one girl who meant everything. A flashback hits him hard, his teammate, Ling Yua. He remembers her, all cheeky, asking for a hug and calling him captain, but in his memory, he just shoves her away like a total jerk, which obviously ticked her off. The memory jumps forward to the mess after a brutal fight. The ground was just littered with the bodies of busted-up monsters. A totally wiped but victorious Ling Yua was sprawled on the ground, cheering that they'd pulled off another win. His past self, Bai, looking just as beat up, just deadpans that it's time to bounce. Ling Yua, still completely drained, jokingly asks if he can give her a lift. A flustered Bai shuts her down cold, telling her to go bother another teammate for a piggyback ride, leaving her to sulk about what a total buzzkill he was. But then, that happy memory gets absolutely obliterated by the nightmare of their team's betrayal. The scene snaps to something dark and grim, as he's forced to relive Ling Yua's final moments, her body a mess of wounds as her life faded. The picture of his own face, twisted in absolute fury at being so useless, is seared into his brain. Getting snapped back to reality, Bai starts brooding over that agonizing past. He remembers he didn't even meet Ling Yua in his last life, until after his master bailed him out of death row. Yeah, they just happened to run into each other in some capital city. He has zero clue where she could possibly be in this new timeline, and miserably figures the odds of them ever meeting again are basically zero. He just gives up, accepting the fact that in this second shot at life, All he's got left are the memories. And hey, even if they did meet, he knows things could never, ever be the same between them. Meanwhile, somewhere else, the vice captain of the ultimate school team is reporting to his boss that Bei still hasn't hit them back about their invitation. He's basically concluded the guy just isn't interested. Then the camera pans over to the captain herself, chilling in her bedroom, holding that very same golden invitation that Bai literally threw in the trash. His total lack of interest just cracks her up. She's thinking this guy is getting more interesting by the second. Rocking a smirk that just screams, "I know I'm awesome." A status window pops up, identifying her as Ling Yue, a golden lightning assassin, and the freaking captain of the ultimate school team. She figures, fine, I'll go meet him myself tomorrow, deciding to hand-deliver the invitation personally. Fast forward to Friday, which just so happens to be his birthday. Bai's chilling at the table at home, staring at a gift box his mom just plopped down in front of him. Sitting right across from him, she's beaming as she tells him it's his birthday present. A little taken aback, Bai eyes the gift for a second before tearing it open. And, inside, he finds a scarf. He's totally baffled, thinking, why a scarf? Summer's literally right around the corner. But tucked in with the scarf is a note with a super heartfelt message, wishing her dear son endless happiness and telling him to go live the life he wants, no holds barred. And just like that, it clicks. His eyes go wide with realization. He looks up at his mom and asks, "You knew, didn't you, that I'm heading to the Shanghai Nation soon?" She just gives him this gentle smile and confirms she knows everything. She explains that the temperature swings there between day and night are no joke, so he's got to take care of himself. She also promises she'll be fine and take care of herself too. Man, Bei is hit right in the feels, realizing his mom has known what he's been up to this whole time and has just been silently cheering him on from the sidelines. Then, with the brightest smile you've ever seen, his mom hands him a wad of cash, suggesting that since it's his birthday, he should totally take his best buds out for a nice meal. Bei lets out a sigh with a ghost of a smile, gently reminding her like it's the 100th time, "Mom, I don't have any friends." So, later that day, back at school, wouldn't you know it, Bai gets cornered by his two buddies from middle school. The first dude enthusiastically shoves a flashy figurine of some blue-haired water mage in his face, proudly bragging that it's his all-time favorite model and asking, "Isn't it sick?" Bai, looking completely unimpressed, just gives him a flat, simple thanks. And seeing that epic fail, Specs steps up, calling the other guy pathetic and telling him to check out a Times Real Times gift. He slaps a plainly wrapped rectangular-looking thing down on Bai's desk, muttering about how it was a real pain to track down. But as Bai unwraps it, his eyes practically bug out of his head. The gift? It's the original freaking soundtrack for his favorite old-school movie, Fatal Magic. And boom, the gift triggers a massive memory dump from his past life. Turns out, he and Specs used to sneak off and watch some seriously forbidden prehistoric flicks back in Asht. And this was their absolute favorite. Specs leans in like he's sharing state secrets, whispering for Bai to stash it good so the teacher doesn't confiscate their contraband. Bai, ever so carefully, slides the legendary artifact under his desk. He looks back at Specs, flashing a genuinely warm smile, and gives him a heartfelt thanks. Specs grins right back, soaking in the moment of their freshly rekindled bromance. Just as that wholesome moment wraps up, Chi Yin glides over to Bai's desk. She calls out his name with a smile so bright it could power a small city. She wishes him a happy birthday and slides a gift box his way, while his two buddies watch from the sidelines. Their jaws hit the floor so hard they probably left dents, completely stunned by what's inside that box. Nestled inside, resting on a plush cushion, lies a ridiculously huge, sparkling gemstone that a system window immediately flags as a rare, unappraised A-class mage weapon. Even Bai looks completely floored by the sheer audacity of this gift. He tries to push the box back to her, stammering that he can't possibly accept something so insanely valuable. But Chi Yin just insists, smiling sweetly as she reminds him that, if it wasn't for him, she wouldn't have even made it onto the training trip. Then, she casually drops the bomb that it's not even that big a deal, since her family has a ton of these things lying around, and she knows it'll be a massive power-up for him. Bai pauses for a second, his hand just hovering over the box like he's deciding whether to accept a divine quest. After mulling it over, his face hardens with newfound determination. He figures, hey, she's got a point. He desperately needs to get stronger, so who is he to turn down a free legendary tier item? It clicks in his head that she must have noticed him fumbling with some low-level starter gear when he swapped to his mage class during the simulation. And this insane gift was her way of saying, dude, you need an upgrade. He can't help but think that she's actually a super considerate person. Sitting there alone at his desk, staring at the three gifts, Bei feels a wave of emotion hit him. He thinks to himself that he never, in a million years, expected them to remember his birthday, let alone hook him up with such awesome loot. He starts to wonder if his whole lone wolf, no attachments plan was maybe a little dumb. Meanwhile, in the background, his two friends are whispering furiously to each other. They're trying to figure out when the heck Bei and the class princess got so buddy-buddy. One of them even throws out the wild theory that maybe Bai just isn't into girls. Their gossip session gets cut short when Qian sneaks up on them, innocently asking what they're whispering about. The question makes both of them jump out of their skin like they've been zapped. Bai's internal monologue was basically, I ain't getting mixed up with these clowns. But, plot twist, their whole "we're so nice" act actually got to him, and he had a change of heart. He turned to face his new party of three, Qian, Specs, and his other buddy, and offered them a dinner quest for that night. He even cracked a smile that looked almost 100% genuine. Then he dropped the magic words, my treat. Naturally, his broke friends absolutely lost their minds. They yelled their acceptance like they'd just won the lottery, with Qi Yin clasping her hands like she was praying to the food gods. Meanwhile, his two goons from middle school were throwing their arms up like they just scored the winning touchdown, and one of them cheekily asked if he could pick the 5-star restaurant. But suddenly, their little victory party was cut short when someone spotted a posse rolling in from the high school division. Bai's face went dead serious as he wondered what kind of side quest these upperclassmen were bringing. Another student pointed out that the intimidating-looking crew was making a beeline straight for their classroom, and Bai watched them approach with his guard way up. The classroom immediately erupted into a storm of hushed whispers. Some kid acting as a lookout at the door hissed that the captain of the ultimate school team had just arrived. The whole class freaked out at the rumor that the captain herself was here to personally recruit Bai to her A-list team. One dude chimed in, saying he heard the captain was a total knockout, though he admitted he'd never actually seen her. That was all Bai needed to hear. He figured it'd be way more satisfying to shoot her down to her face. So, he got up from his desk and strolled right out of the classroom, leaving his stunned friends behind. They just watched him go, grabbing their imaginary popcorn for the epic drama about to unfold. News of the big confrontation spread like a viral meme, and kids from all over started packing the balconies to get a look. And guess who was in the crowd of haters? None other than Zilling. He was posted up with his little crew, his face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. You could practically hear his teeth grinding as he muttered insults under his breath, wondering why that stinking brat Bai was getting all this main character treatment. He kept on glaring from his perch, practically radiating salty energy. But the massive crowd didn't even make Bai flinch. He just walked confidently down the hall to meet the captain like he owned the place. And then, bam! A blinding flash of golden electric energy just detonated in the hallway. The insane power surge sent a bunch of onlookers flying, all of them screaming, "What in the world just happened?" But Bai? He wasn't even knocked back. He was just standing there, frozen solid, his eyes wide with absolute, jaw-dropping shock. Arcs of golden lightning start zapping around his face as he glares at whatever's causing the ruckus. His expression is a perfect cocktail of what the heck and oh no, not you. The entire hallway explodes in a chaotic storm of golden lightning, with Bai just chilling in the eye of it all. A massive beam of pure electrical energy comes barreling straight for his face, but he doesn't even flinch, his expression unreadable and lost in the shadows. This is while the sheer force of the blast sends the other students flying like bowling pins. With his pro-gamer level experience, Bai instantly clocks the head-on assault as a total fake-out, just a flashy distraction for the real attack. He reacts in less than a heartbeat, summoning his own glowing green blade to shut down the incoming threat. But just as he gets ready, his danger senses start screaming bloody murder. The real trouble is coming from behind. With laser-like focus, he pinpoints the attack, coming from his back left. He whips around just in the nick of time, parrying the ridiculously fast strike with his own blade in a blinding flash of power. The few onlookers still standing are completely floored by the speed of it all, just yelling in a mix of confusion and awe. The source of this flashy ambush is revealed to be a young woman, her entire body radiating an insane golden aura, her face hidden by the blinding light, but she's definitely smiling. As the glow fades, Bai peeks out, and his whole cool guy facade just shatters. His eyes are practically bugging out of his skull in disbelief. The attacker powers down, retracting her energy. It's Ling Yui, the captain of the ultimate school team, casually holding a blade that's still buzzing with electricity. She shoots him a smug little smirk, clearly impressed, and compliments his quick reflexes, saying she knew she hadn't picked the wrong guy. Bai can only gawk back at her, completely stunned and at a total loss for words. The person from his past life, the one he figured he'd never see again, is standing right in front of him. Staring at Ling Yui, Baiyi's mind flashes back to his past life with her. He remembers her being so cheerful and such a playful troll, always asking for hugs with a big grin or demanding a piggyback ride after a tough fight. He also gets a painful gut punch of a memory, recalling how he, being the emotionally constipated guy he was, would always push her away, leaving her to pout about what a big meanie he was. Snapping back to the present, Ling Yui, still sparking with leftover lightning, casually explains that, since he was ghosting her team's invitations, she figured she'd deliver one personally, so she decided to show up in the flesh. And every other student, including Baiyi's own crew, just stared, completely dumbfounded. Specs and his buddy started whispering nervously, totally convinced this was about to get super awkward. They were already cringing, just imagining Baiyi shooting down the famous captain right to her face. Getting her game face back on, Lingua extended a hand for a formal introduction, starting to state her name. But Baiyi? He completely blew past her outstretched hand and, in one smooth motion, pulled her into a solid, warm hug. The entire crowd just short-circuited into a stunned silence. From the doorway, Qi Yin's eyes went wide with disbelief, while up on the balcony, Xilin's face twisted with pure fury. Held tight in Baiyi's embrace, Lingua was a whole new person. She looked up at him, all her usual cool confidence replaced by wide-eyed surprise and the faintest hint of a blush. Baiyi just looked down at her, his expression surprisingly soft and genuine. He murmured a name from their past, softly saying it had been a long time, all while still holding her. Meanwhile, his two middle school buddies were absolutely losing their minds. They were practically screaming in disbelief that he'd hug her in public, wondering if this was some kind of forbidden, high society romance. Specs immediately corrected his friend, explaining that Lingua wasn't some older woman. She was actually in their grade, but was such a prodigy she skipped ahead to high school after her awakening happened super early. In the background, Qi Yin was still staring, looking completely zoned out, but Lingua was already snapping out of it. She broke from the hug, vanished in a flash of lightning, and instantly reappeared right beside Baiyi. She gave his shoulder a light tap with a finger that was still crackling with raw energy. With a confident smirk back on her face, she asked if that little surprise hug meant he was accepting her invitation to the team. She didn't even wait for an answer, just dove right back into her sales pitch. She explained how the ultimate school team was totally stacked, fully funded with the absolute best resources. She then teased that they knew faster ways to level up than just grinding school dungeons, suggesting they could be fighting side by side. Baiyi let her say her piece, listening to the whole offer in complete silence. Then, looking her dead in the eye, he gave her his final answer. He told her straight up that he wouldn't be joining the ultimate school team, adding that he wasn't planning on sticking around this school for long anyway. So, joining some club would be a total waste of his time. After shutting her down cold, Baiyi held out his own hand, confidently telling Lingua that while her team was a no-go, he was busy making plans to establish his very own guild. And soon, he took her hand in a firm shake, giving her a determined grin and assuring her that when that day finally comes, they would absolutely get their chance to fight side by side. Just as things were getting good, the vice captain comes barreling in, all flustered and asking what Ling Yua is doing here. He blurts out that some big shot named Hongchu is back, and the principal wants their whole squad to roll out the red carpet. As she gets ready to bounce, Ling Yua tells Baiyi they'll catch each other at the training trip, shooting him one last look over her shoulder. She promises him a real conversation next time. But right before she takes off, she stops and hits him with the million-dollar question. Why'd you say it's been a while? We've never even met. Baiyi just stands there, giving her nothing, his face a total poker mask as she leaves. From a safe distance, Xiling is catching the whole drama unfold, his face twisted up in some serious, silent rage. The second Ling Yua is gone, the student body just erupts into frantic whispers. They're absolutely losing their minds that Bei just shot down a personal invite from the freakin' captain and had the gall to invite times her times to times his times own future guild. They're all like, how is that even possible? He's a kid, and you need insane cash to start a guild. While some are just chalking it up to him running his mouth, others remember that little rumor about him snagging the academy's all-time high score. Then one sharp-eyed student points out that Ling Yua, never actually said no to his ridiculously bold counteroffer. Watching her walk away, Bai mulls over how crazy things just got, admitting he never pictured his reunion with Ling Yue going down quite like this. He thinks back to the old rules of the divine core. Everyone's personal info was top secret, and nobody ever went digging into anyone else's past, which is exactly why he had no clue Ling Yue went to the same middle school as him. It hits him that he almost completely blew his chance to find her again in this lifetime. A small, genuine smirk starts to creep across his face. He figures this totally unexpected, awesome reunion is one heck of a birthday present. Later that night, Bai makes good on his word and takes his crew, Chi Yin and Specs, plus his other buddy from middle school, out for some Korean barbecue. As they're chowing down, Specs starts giving their other friend a hard time for picking the restaurant, but the guy just fires back, saying Bai was the one craving barbecue. He just pointed them to the best spot. But then, the vibe gets a little more serious in between flipping some meat on the grill. Specs asks Bai if he was for real about that whole starting my own guild plan, and Chi Yin jumps in, looking worried, asking what he meant by not sticking around school for long and what his deal was with high school. Bai just takes a cool, calm sip of his drink, completely unfazed. And just like that, Bai confirms their worst fears, casually dropping that after this little training trip, he's ditching them to stay in the Shanghai nation, which, predictably, makes his friends absolutely lose their minds. They're freaking out, yelling about whether he's seriously dropping out of high school just to start a guild. Bai, cool as a cucumber, just tells them to chill out. He's not dropping out, just continuing his studies over there. And that's when it finally clicks for his not-so-sharp friends. The absolute mad lad is planning to apply to the legendary Divine Guild Academy in the Shanghai nation. Meanwhile, across town, a flashy white sports car glides up to the ridiculously luxurious Kaiban Hotel, where a welcoming party of men in black suits is waiting. Our boy Inspector Li Yang is in the mix, and he's bowing like his life depends on it, while opening the car door for an absolute unit of a man with blonde hair, a wicked scar over his eye, and a cigar practically living in his mouth. This guy is none other than Hong Bing, the big boss, the guild master of the Divine Guild. With just a single grunt to move, he struts into the hotel like he owns the joint, his entourage scrambling to keep up. The second guildmaster Hong Bing and his posse enter the ballroom. You could hear a pin drop. Inspector Liang is watching this whole scene unfold, looking like he's about to have a heart attack. His eyes are glued to a sight that makes zero sense. Bing, B's father, just standing there looking smug with his arms crossed, buddy-buddy with Inspector Chen Jin-woo. Liang is completely losing it, trying to process what in the world is happening. He's thinking, how is that dude out of the slammer? He was supposed to be cooling his heels for a 15-day sentence for his little rampage. Right on cue, Chen Jin-woo slithers over to Liang with a grin that just screams, I'm a crooked cop. He casually explains that Bing paid double the bail and, surprise, surprise, the captain gave it the A-OK. He's basically telling Liang to just turn a blind eye, which makes our rule-abiding inspector absolutely see red. Liang grits his teeth, trying not to explode, and gets right up in Chen Jin-woo's face. He demands to know why, even if the guy somehow got sprung from jail. He was personally escorted to a super important dinner with the guildmaster Hong Bing. Leaning in, Chen Jin-woo reminds Liang that Bing got kicked out of the guild for some so-called minor incident way back when. He lays it all out. Bing sees this as his one-in-a-million shot to crawl back into the guild's good graces. And with a smirk that could curdle milk, Bing whips out a bag stuffed with high-grade magic crystals, the kind of primo ore you only find in a demon cave. Chen Jin-woo finishes his little corruption for dummies speech, saying that since Bing literally sold off his family's entire net worth for this shot, doing him one little favor was no big deal. But yeah, that master plan? It face-planted instantly. Before Ling could even open his mouth, Guildmaster Hong Bing slaps the bag right out of his hands, sending the crystals scattering like cheap confetti. He then starts roaring, demanding to know who let this clown Ling Shang in. A terrified Ling Shang can only sputter as the absolute unit of a guildmaster towers over him, his face all scrunched up in pure rage. Hong Bing screams that the Divine Guild rented out the whole place and angrily questions why some stray dog is being allowed to sniff around their secrets. The sheer force of his meltdown leaves both Chen Jin-woo and Liang looking pale as ghosts. Completely humiliated, Ling Sheng just collapses to his knees, desperately trying to scoop up the broken shinies, while stammering out an apology. But his pathetic pleas are cut short when Hong Bing lunges forward and snatches him up by the collar. With his eyes glowing menacingly, a classic villain move, the The guildmaster gets right up in Ling Shang's personal space, asking with total disgust what power or rank gave him the nerve to even attempt a bribe. Then, for the final blow, he shoves Ling Shang away, telling him to grab his useless broken trash and get lost. Guildmaster Hong Bing drops one last, soul-crushing order. From this moment on, that mutt is permanently banned from the guild. Sprawled on the floor amidst the glittery ruins of his big plan, Ling Sheng's face twists into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. Blood drips from his clenched fist as he mutters a dark promise. Then, in a spectacular fit of rage, he smashes his bloody fist straight into the ground, pulverizing the last of the crystals as his eyes flare up with a sinister red light. Completely consumed by his humiliation, he screams that he's going to make them all pay for daring to look down on him. Shrouded in a dark, edgy aura, Ling stalks his way out of the hotel. His mind is just a whirlwind of rage, absolutely seething over being so thoroughly owned, cursing the fact that not a single thing in his life is going right. His fury, needing a new punching bag, quickly finds a new and much easier target. An image of his wife coming home with groceries flashes through his mind, and his dark thoughts begin to take shape. He stands before their new apartment, his body glowing with a nasty red energy as he vows to end them all. The mother's eyes suddenly snap wide open in alarm. She's sensed the incoming trouble. Outside the apartment complex, Ling Shang's eyes glow with malice as he watches his wife step outside. She straight up drops her groceries, paralyzed with fear, as this dude looms over her, crackling with a seriously evil red aura. He just sneers in this bone-chilling voice. Good luck. Meanwhile, back at the KBBQ joint, the totally chill vibe of Beiyi's birthday cookout is about to get wrecked. A whole squad of guys in slick, official-looking uniforms decides to crash the party, and a zoom in on their cloaks reveals a shiny gold pin. Yep, that's the Divine Guild's logo. Alright. Beiyi, cool as a cucumber, just sips his drink and casually points out, "Hey guys, looks like we've got a Divine Guild squad here." Chi Yin immediately starts geeking out, telling Beiyi that if he aces the Divine Guild Academy entrance, those guys will be his work buddies. Then she quickly backtracks with a grin. Actually, scratch that, you'll probably end up being their boss. This talk gets Beiyi's other buddy all sentimental and mopey, complaining that he never thought this would be a goodbye dinner, but Chi Yin shuts that down fast, like, who said anything about goodbye? She then declares with total conviction that she's going to grind hard too, and get into the academy right alongside him. But as Beiyi watches the guild members stroll past, his protagonist danger senses start tingling like crazy. He's thinking, today has been way too perfect. Something's gotta give. Specs, picking up on the sudden mood drop, tries to get the party back on track, reminding everyone, "Yo, it's Beiyi's birthday. Let's save the existential dread for tomorrow, okay?" His friend totally agrees, adding that a birthday is for having fun. But even with all the hype from his friends, Beiyi just can't shake this gut feeling that things are about to go sideways. His friends, though? They're totally ready to party on. One of his pals raises his glass, ready to make a toast to the birthday boy, Beiyi, and all four of them slam their cups together, shouting a big, happy birthday. But right as their glasses meet, the camera dramatically zooms in on that weird jade stone Beiyi is wearing. At the exact same moment, his mom is shaking like a leaf, clutching a necklace with a matching stone. She looks up, absolutely terrified, at her husband, Bing, who's towering over her and glowing with that same psycho-red aura. She hits the floor, and he starts laying into her with some choice words, mocking her and asking if her comfy new life made her forget who she belongs to. As she desperately scrambles backward, he keeps up the verbal beatdown, spitting venom as he demands to know which other man has been bankrolling her little escape. Dude's eyes are glowing with pure, unadulterated psycho energy, flashing a grin that screams, "I'm the final boss of toxic relationships." He cracks his knuckles like some B-list movie villain and lays down the final ultimatum, spitting some nonsense about making her remember her place. With maximum rage, Ling Shang winds up to throw down on his absolutely terrified wife. But wait, his tiny brain gets distracted by something shiny on her wrist, and he's like, "Hold up, where'd you get that bling?" It's a pricey-looking bracelet, glowing with a faint, mysterious green light. While his wife is frozen in fear, our boy here connects some imaginary dots and comes to a completely bonkers conclusion. He starts cackling like a madman, convinced she must have a sugar daddy on the side, which, in his galaxy brain logic, is the only way they could afford this sweet new pad. So, in a totally heroic burst of rage, Ling goes for the one-hit KO on his completely defenseless wife, who's just cowering on the floor. But right as his fist is about to connect, bam, the bracelet goes supernova with brilliant green energy, throwing up a last-second parry, and from that light, two absolute unit-sized monsters materialize out of thin air. Ling Shang is just gobsmacked, his brain totally short-circuiting. A massive armored hand just snatches his fist mid-punch, shutting down his pathetic attack completely. He's just staring, completely bamboozled, trying to process how he just got CCCOMBO broken. Standing guard in front of Bei's mom are now two epic summons, Ya Warren and Chi Warren, and these guys are now the wall between her and her trash husband. The new bodyguards turn to Bei's mom, telling her not to sweat it. They've got her back, till the very end, all thanks to Bai. Right then, Bai's mom gets hit with a flashback. She remembers Bai handing her the bracelet, explaining it was a little something for Mother's Day. He'd made her promise to wear it 24/7 when he wasn't there. Snapping back to the present, one of the summons doesn't even hesitate. Chi Warren just launches forward, eyes glowing, and charges straight at Ling Shang. Ling Shang is forced to scramble out of the way of a massive, purple energy-infused haymaker. He immediately gets put on the back foot, stuck in a 2-on-1 against Chi Warren and the other beast, Ya Warren. And even with all his so-called combat experience, the dude is getting absolutely clapped. A heavy hitter from Chi Warren connects clean, smashing into him with insane force. The impact sends him skidding across the floor, and he's already leaking HP from a gash on his side. But instead of being scared or hurt, a messed-up, bloody grin just spreads across Ling's face. An aura of crackling red lightning flares up around him as he declares this beatdown is the perfect way to finally let off some steam. His eyes start glowing menacingly as he prepares to activate his own final boss mode. A totally unhinged grin spread across his face, practically screaming, "Let's get this party started." Just as Bai was chowing down on some well-deserved birthday grub with his crew, the good vibes suddenly took a nosedive off a cliff. He glanced down at the jade pendant on his chest, which was now glowing like a rave stick. His face instantly went from, "Happy birthday to me," to, "Oh crap, something's wrong," because that little glow-up could only mean one thing. Mom's in trouble. Not a single word was needed. He shot up from his chair, leaving his buddies blinking in confusion as he mumbled something about urgent business. And just like that, he bolted out of the restaurant like his pants were on fire, tossing a quick, "Be right back." Over his shoulder, he left his friends staring at his dust. The moment he hit the pavement, Bai was already speed-dialing Hong Qian Shen, demanding the 411 he'd asked for earlier. On the other end of the line, Hong dropped a bombshell that confirmed Bai's worst nightmare. His old man, Bing, was out of the slammer ahead of schedule. To make things spicier, he immediately crashed a fancy party thrown by Hong's dad, only to get epically embarrassed and shown the door like yesterday's trash. Hong wrapped it up, saying that after his grand exit, Ling had completely vanished off the grid. As Bai processed this lovely family update, his calls to his mom went straight to voicemail, which was basically a giant, flashing neon sign saying she was in deep trouble. Standing there in the alley, the gears in Bai's head started turning. He put two and two together and got a big fat, "Oh no," the hotel his ticked-off dad got booted from was practically next door to the new pad he'd just set up for his mom. He knew that if his dad, in his current "I'm gonna punch a wall" mood, stumbled upon his mom, it wouldn't be a happy family reunion. A surge of pure adrenaline hit him, and he gripped the handlebars of his bike so hard they probably creaked. He vaulted onto his trusty steed and peeled out into the darkness, his eyes blazing with that classic protagonist power-up glow as he pedaled like a madman to save the day. While Bai was breaking the sound barrier on his bicycle, his mind was racing. He tried to calm himself, remembering he'd left his summoned homies, his so-called nameless brothers, on bodyguard duty for his mom. Yeah, about that. Back at the apartment, the situation was looking pretty bleak. Ling Shang, crackling with a seriously nasty red aura, was standing triumphantly over the crumpled form of one of the summons. Chi Wuran, literally scoffing. "Is that all you got?" And just like that, Bai's worst fears got a big, fat checkmark. He knew his starter pack summons weren't going to last long against a final boss like his dad. The last summon standing, Ya Wuran, was putting on a brave face, acting as the final line of defense. He was playing human shield for Bai's mom, telling her to stay put while the big bad, Ling Shang, strolled closer. Ling Shang just smirked, his creepy eyes glowing, as he casually swatted away the poor summon's attacks like they were annoying flies. In a last-ditch, totally not gonna work move, The wrecked Chiwan desperately clings to Ling's leg, as if that would actually stop him. Annoyed by this pathetic interruption, Ling glances down at the creature, calling it a complete nuisance. Then, with one swift, brutal motion, he snatches the summon and performs a quick, permanent chiropractic adjustment to its neck. Now, in a full-blown murderous frenzy, he repeatedly redesigns the creature's body, his rage just screaming for the kill count to go up. Baiyi's mother can only watch this horror show from the front row, her face getting a complimentary blood-splatter facial as she witnesses the gruesome performance. With Protector Number 1 deleted, Ling Shang pivots, aiming his cold, murderous gaze at his wife, casually brandishing his freshly painted knife. He declares that she's up next, and begins that classic, slow-motion villain walk towards her, his path blocked only by the final summon playing hero. The last little guy on the field, Yarin, stares him down with a look of pure, unadulterated determination. In a final, loyal gambit, it turns to Baiyi's mother and practically screams for her to make a run for it. Without a moment's hesitation, the beast yeets itself at Ling Shang, wrapping him up like a gift in a bundle of green, vine-like tendrils, yelling at its master not to look back, pulling the ultimate sacrifice play to buy her time. Absolutely horrified, Baiyi's mother finally turns and runs for her life. But the summon's desperate hug is completely useless. Ling Shang, crackling with edgy red lightning, just flexes and shatters the vines like they were cooked spaghetti. He grabs the creature in one powerful hand and, with a show of total overkill, tears it in two, logging it out of existence permanently. As Baiyi's mother continues her panicked sprint, she sees her husband standing triumphantly over the shredded remains of her last bodyguard. He mockingly asks if she really thought a little cardio was the answer. In a flash of red energy, he teleports directly into her path, cutting off her escape. Cornered and shaking like a leaf, she looks up at him, looming over her, his eyes glowing with a sick, sadistic pleasure. He taunts her. So, where to now? Trapped and totally defenseless, she can only stare back in pure, unfiltered terror. Positively seething, Ling Shang lunges and violently snatches the responsive jade stone from his wife's neck. Holding the precious little trinket, he lets out a textbook villainous sneer, his eyes flaring with malice as he venomously asks if her boy toy gave her this too. Without even waiting for an answer, he clenches his fist and crushes the stone, shattering his wife's final hope into a million pieces. His face twisted in a mask of pure rage, he raises his knife, ready to deliver the final blow. Just as the weapon is about to fall, his wife is paralyzed by sheer terror. But then, a faint pink glow envelops her as her son's promise echoes in her mind. She remembers his words, telling her to shatter the small stone he gave her the second she was in real trouble. His voice, a beacon in her memory, swore that the very instant that stone was broken, he would materialize right beside her. And just as the blade is a hair's breadth from its target, a hand rockets out of nowhere, catching the razor-sharp edge with nothing but a bare hand, halting the attack dead in its tracks. In a brilliant flash of light, Baiyi has arrived, teleporting to stand as a human shield between his mother and the man he once called father. His mother can only stare, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and utter disbelief at her son's impossible, last-second rescue. Bailing is just as floored, his face twisting from pure shock into unadulterated rage at this sudden meddling. With a cold, fierce look, Baiyi just tightens his grip on the blade, his gaze never wavering as a menacing aura begins to radiate from his body. He locks eyes with the old man and declares with chilling finality, "This little show of yours ends right now." This intense standoff triggers a flood of traumatic memories from Baiyi's previous life. He sees himself again, a small, terrified kid, completely helpless, tears carving paths down his face as he screamed his little lungs out, begging for it all to just stop. The memory drags him back to that one horrific day. His father, Bailing, consumed by a volcanic rage, was unleashing hell on his mother with a wooden plank, while a younger Baiyi was tied up, forced to witness every single moment. The man was a monster, absolutely raving, howling about how he slaved away while they had fun, his mind completely warped by a poisonous resentment. All the young Baiyi could do was watch the one-sided demolition. The reflection of his mother's agony was seared into his vision as he screamed, his voice raw, for his father to stop. He begged, he pleaded, he bargained, but the old man's fury was a deafening storm. Crushed by the sheer weight of his own powerlessness, Baiyi could only weep as his mother was finally battered into silence, and he remembered exactly how that tragedy kicked off. It all started on the first weekend of his first year in high school. His mom had treated him to a day at an amusement park, and in all the fun, they forgot one crucial detail, telling his dad they'd be late. On that very same day, his father had bombed another job interview, and when he came back to an empty house, he let all that failure and frustration fester into a ticking time bomb. The moment they walked through that door, the switch flipped, and the monster he always kept hidden was finally let off its leash. And as his mother moved to shield him one last time, his father landed the blows that would end everything, sending her to the shadow realm right in front of him. After witnessing that absolute horror show, young Bai gritted his teeth as the sheer shock and grief triggered the classic trauma-induced power-up. This little family therapy session gone wrong was the catalyst for a surprise class change, leveling up his lame, green-tier nuclear warrior job to the ridiculously overpowered platinum-tier nuclear holy swordsman. And that's when the flashback hits its absolutely grim finale. Hopped up on grief and a terrifying new stat sheet, little Bai went full-on berserker mode on his dear old dad. In a complete rage quit, he snapped his restraints like they were made of paper, grabbing the very chain that held him and giving his father a brand new, much tighter necklace. He totally lost his cool and choked the guy out, but surprise, surprise, revenge didn't magically patch up his broken heart. Even with his father permanently logged off, his mother wasn't respawning. The memory fades out on the super cheerful image of a crying kid holding his dad's corpse next to his mom's. Snapping back to the present, Bai's resolve is now set in stone. He grabs the very blade that was supposed to end his mother, and basically declares, "Not on my watch, dude." Then, with a classic anime power flex, he shatters his dad's puny dagger with his bare hand, because of course he can. Bai casually tosses the metal confetti aside, planting himself in front of his mom like a superhero. Facing down his now unarmed and utterly gobsmacked father, Bai Shang sneers, wondering which idiot hero showed up, only to realize it's his own son, Bai. Absolutely furious, he charges forward, screaming that this is just perfect, since he can now get a 2-for-1 discount on family deletion. In response, Bai just calmly summons the Hunwu blade. The sword just materializes in his hand, glowing with a seriously intimidating green "you're about to get wrecked" aura. As his dad swings wildly like a madman, Bai effortlessly blocks the attack with a lazy parry, sending all that angry energy right back where it came from. The force of this return to sender counter sends the old man flying, making him kiss the pavement, hard. Stunned, Bai Shang starts coughing up the obligatory mouthful of blood. He's completely floored by his son's new buffed-up stats. His shock quickly turns to rage when he finally recognizes the weapon, screaming, "Hey, that's my Hunwu blade." The light bulb finally goes on. He realizes his kid has been secretly borrowing his epic tier loot this whole time. As this family reunion from hell continues, Bai's mom just watches in stunned silence, while the two summoned beasts, Yorin and Chiwarin, start their regeneration sequence behind her. Bai's top priority is his mother's safety, so he turns to his summons. He orders his so-called nameless brothers to get her to a safe location. As Ling watches this unfold, his expression of pure rage morphs into a twisted, intrigued smile. It dawns on him with sick fascination that the two powerhouse beasts are his son's personal summons. He points a finger at Bai as the puzzle pieces click together. He deduces his son is an incredibly rare dual-element user, a nuclear warrior, times and times a flower-element summoner. This mind-blowing discovery sends him into a roaring fit of manic laughter. He exclaims with a deranged sense of pride that his son awakened two professions so young, shouting that Bai is truly worthy of his bloodline. Bai, however, just gives him a deadpan stare, completely unimpressed by the sudden praise. Just as quickly, Ling's pride sours back into pure menace. He tells Bai that simply inheriting his talent isn't nearly enough, taking a threatening step forward. His voice turns ice cold as he berates his son for having the nerve to move out without a word. Ling's fury escalates as he starts rattling off his son's unforgivable crimes. First, cleaning out his safe, and then getting his own father thrown in the slammer. He screams that Bai must think he's some kind of big shot now with two professions, arrogant enough to disobey his own father. With a final, furious roar, he disappears in a flash of red lightning. He's moving with unbelievable speed, launching a blitz attack. Watching from a safe distance, Bai's mother screams a desperate warning for him to be careful, but Bai is more than prepared. A brilliant blue energy crackles around his hand just as a system notification confirms he is switching his profession to Cloud Element Mage. His eyes focus, instantly pinpointing his father's location the exact moment he reappears to strike. With a single powerful command, Bai unleashes a colossal wave of ice. It flash freezes his father solid in a frosty prison mid-attack. Ling is completely encased in ice. His face is a perfect portrait of shock and utter confusion as he struggles helplessly. He wonders what in the world this power is and why he's suddenly a human popsicle, muttering in disbelief. He questions if his son really only has two professions. Standing calmly before the ice block, Bai coldly corrects him. He simply states, "You're wrong. The two are now face to face. One a statue, the other the sculptor." The power dynamic has been completely reversed, with Ling Shang trapped and powerless. Bai continues, his voice completely flat and devoid of emotion. He informs his father that the number of professions he can awaken has absolutely nothing to do with him, before delivering a final, devastating line. From where he's standing, his old man is completely and utterly useless. Ling's eyes practically bulge out of his head in pure fury at the diss, and he starts thrashing against the ice like a wild animal. He's screaming his lungs out, absolutely livid at what his son just spouted. Fed up with his son's defiance, Bing Shan lets loose a crackle of red lightning, scoffing at Bai's sheer nerve. He's quick to remind his kid that just because Bai's a freshly awakened rookie, he's a battle-hardened S-class warrior, roaring about who's the times real times head of this house. With that, he shatters the ice prison in a massive explosion of pure power. But Bai? He's completely unfazed. Now that he's unlocked his nuclear warrior class, he just whips out the Hun Wu blade and casually blocks his dad's furious punch with a slick swing of his own. Not even giving the old man a second to catch his breath, Bai juices up the blade with energy and lunges straight ahead, landing a devastating stab that slices through his father's defenses like they're made of butter. Ling stares down at the sword sticking out of his chest, his face a perfect picture of, what just happened? He can't wrap his head around how his kid's attack just ignored his defenses, muttering that it's flat out impossible. Wincing, he yanks the blade out of his gut and collapses to his knees, clutching the gushing wound. He demands to know how Bai has this much insane attack power, insisting that a brand new E-class scrub shouldn't be anywhere near this ridiculously strong. Bai just stands over his broken father, a menacing red aura practically dripping off him as he announces that from this day on, they're no longer father and son, and to twist the knife, he declares his mother is cut off from him, too. With an ice-cold, dead-eyed stare, Bai tells Ling that, in his world, he is now less than nothing. Utterly crushed by the beatdown and the brutal words, Ling Shang trembles in defeat. But then, a low chuckle escapes his lips, slowly building into a full-blown maniacal laugh as he kneels before the son who just completely mopped the floor with him. Refusing to accept this humiliation, Bing Sheng screams at his son, trying to guilt-trip him, asking if he has any idea who slaved away to earn money and keep a roof over their heads. He desperately insists that Bai will always be his son, and nothing can ever change that. Calling his son an ungrateful little punk, Ling Shang lunges forward for one last, pathetic attack. But Bai effortlessly sidesteps and counters with a swift, powerful kick right to his old man's face. The sheer force of the blow sends Ling Shang tumbling across the pavement like a discarded rag doll. As his old man struggles to his feet, Bai casually closes the distance. Ling Shang throws another sloppy haymaker, but his son dodges it like it's in slow motion. Totally tilted, Ling Shang screeches, wondering why he can't even land a single scratch. Spotting the massive opening, Bai decides it's time to unleash a rapid-fire combo, completely overwhelming his dad's pathetic defense. Beaten and broken, Ling stumbles back, spitting up a mouthful of red. He mutters in total disbelief that he's a class red-tier warrior. Unable to compute this absolute beatdown, Bai strolls forward, yanks his father up by the hair, and coldly asks if his ears are just for decoration. With a face twisted in pure contempt, he informs his father that he's not even in the same league. Bai's mind gets hit with a flashback montage of all the years of garbage he endured. He sees his father using his mother as a punching bag, while a small, helpless Bai was tied up and forced to watch the horror show. Bai remembers his father was only brave enough to throw hands at home because he was a total coward against anyone stronger than him outside. He sees his father for what he is, weak, useless, and absolute trash. He relives his old man, introducing his face to the floor. Snapping back to the present, Bai grabs the thoroughly tenderized Bing Shang by his hair, screaming that he doesn't even deserve to be called a man. With pure, unfiltered rage, he starts redecorating the pavement with his father's skull. Hidden behind her summoned guardians, Bai's mother watches the brutal payback in absolute terror, weakly whispering her son's name. Now just a mess on the ground, Bing Shang starts begging his son to stop, trying to pull the "I'm the dad who raised you" card and pleading about their family bond. Oh, mentioning the family bond was a critical error that just maxed out Baiyi's rage meter. His eyes flash with a fury so cold it could cause frostbite. He grabs his father by the collar and roars, asking if he ever gave a damn about family bonds when he was beating them senseless. Baiyi's mind is a horror film of his father's greatest hits of cruelty. He remembers one time when he was just 7 years old. His father grabbed him by the ear while he cried in pain, then repeatedly used his head to tenderize the wall. He remembers pleading that he was sorry, while his terrified mother begged her husband to stop. But his pleas were completely useless. His father just pulled even harder, ripping off a piece of his ear and making him scream in pure, unadulterated agony. Baiyi's anger hits a new level as he remembers the violence was a regular family special that never stopped. Even with his ear nearly torn off, all he could picture was the endless highlight reel of his mother getting beaten. He remembered that from the day he was born, she was basically a VIP at the local hospital every single month because his dad would flip out for any dumb reason, like if the food was bland, or just because he was in a bad mood. Baiyi screams that his father used them as his personal stress balls. He yells that because of him, they never got a single, freaking normal day. Fueled by a final wave of pure rage, he reintroduces his father's face to the pavement, one last time. Standing over the broken old man, Baiyi scoffs at the nerve of his father to bring up family now of all times, asking if he even deserved the title. Bailing is just a motionless lump on the cracked ground, utterly defeated, barely able to push himself up. He whimpers a pathetic apology, admitting he was trash. He just keeps on begging, swearing up and down he'll be a new man. Finally, Bingsheng gets on his knees, pressing his forehead to the ground, bawling his eyes out that he's truly, deeply sorry. But Baiyi just looks down on him, his glowing eyes as cold as a server crash, totally immune to the waterworks. Baiyi glares down, his own eyes blazing with a golden light. He tells his old man this is a rerun of an old episode. The second his father figured out he was outmatched, he started with the tears and pleas for forgiveness. A memory from Baiyi's last playthrough flashes in his head, showing his dad kneeling in front of him beside a shattered chain. He recalls actually believing the guy had genuinely changed his ways back then. But the memory glitches, revealing the pure malice hiding behind those crocodile tears, his father's eyes glowing with a rage-quit red. Baiyi remembers that in that one moment he let his guard down. His father grabbed a shiv and lunged at him, going for the kill steal. Baiyi knows that once a guy picks up a butcher's knife, he's not just going to put it down because you asked nicely. As this grim little tidbit solidifies his resolve, a series of system notifications start popping up like spam ads. It shows his adrenaline stat is climbing. Bingsheng looks up from the ground, his face a bloody mess, but his expression hardening into pure defiance. More alerts flash as his adrenaline goes into overdrive and his ultimate skill, Sanctuary, starts to evolve. Wrapped in a ridiculously overpowered golden aura, Baiyi raises his Hunwu blade, ready to unleash the final, game-ending attack. Ding! Another notification pops up, announcing he's unlocked a brand new skill, Binary Judgment. Just as Baiyi gears up to strike, his mother screams his name, a desperate last-ditch cry, reaching out as if she could physically stop him. Baiyi just scoffs to himself. The idea of a lowlife like his dad actually feeling sorry? Yeah, right. He figures it's way better to make sure his old man can never pull another stunt again. He unleashes some seriously nasty golden energy slashes from his blade, completely shredding his father's tendons. Bailing lets out a blood-curdling scream from the attack, now lying in a rapidly growing pool of his own juice. Bingsheng is just wailing in agony over his totally wrecked limbs, terrified and completely broken. Bailing starts begging for his life, desperately trying to play the "but I'm your father" card. His pathetic pleas fall on deaf ears, as Bai's expression stays as cold and unmoving as a statue. Switching over to his Cloud Mage class, Bai whips up a shard of ice and slaps it over his father's mouth, shutting him up for good. With a grim, all-business look on his face, Bai raises his weapon to deliver the final blow. He casually recalls that he already offed his dad once in his past life, so, hey, what's one more time? But right as he's about to bring the pain, a voice suddenly rings out, telling him to knock it off, which totally startles him. He's like, who the heck was that? He can tell it's a woman's voice, and it's coming from one of his summons, Urin, who's standing protectively right behind his mom. As a flower element summon, it's basically working as a magical walkie-talkie, piping his mother's voice straight into his head. Through this flowery telephone, his mother pleads with him, begging him not to become a monster just like his father. She tells him his dad has already been stripped of everything he ever took pride in. Her words actually seem to get through to him. He hesitates and glances back, his hard expression softening just a bit. His mom explains, through the summon, that his father will now have to live every single day drowning in regret and bitterness, and for a guy like him, that's the absolute worst punishment imaginable. Bai looks seriously conflicted, but she presses on, pleading that she refuses to watch him become the next monster in their messed-up family. More than that, she can't stand the thought of his future self being consumed by darkness. This triggers a brutal flashback from Bai's past life, where he was thrown in prison for killing his father, sentenced to waste away behind bars. The combined weight of his mother's words and that awful memory hits him like a truck. With a newfound resolve, he looks up and tells his mother that he finally gets it. He turns back to his father, who's still frozen solid with a face full of ice, and declares that while he won't take his life, he's permanently revoking his access to their family. Bai's hand tightens around his shimmering blade, its light pulsing with raw power. He smirks, recognizing an old favorite from his past life before unleashing the devastating binary judgment skill. A blinding, cross-shaped wave of golden energy erupts from his sword, a technique designed specifically to obliterate the awakened power of any chump at his level or below. The attack slams into Bing, and a system window pops up, confirming the inevitable. Awakened power has been permanently destroyed. Bai looms over the pathetic, now powerless shell of his father. With a flick of his wrist, he sheathes his blade and issues his final decree. Get out of the city by tomorrow, and never even think about coming near his mother again. He turns and walks back to his mother, who's safely guarded by her loyal summons, tossing one last bone-chilling warning over his shoulder. He informs his old man that his summon, Ya Warren, has his scent locked. If he ever dares to wander within 3 kilometers of his mom again, he doesn't care if it lands him in an awakened supermax prison for life. Bai will personally hunt him down and erase him from existence, no questions asked. Lying on the ground, utterly shattered, his power and his pride completely gone. As the frost on his face melts into tears, Bing can only stare blankly at the sky and whisper a pathetic, "I understand," accepting his soul-crushing defeat. After the storm of their clash, an eerie silence falls over the city. Back in the safety of their apartment, Bai stands in front of his mom, who's on the couch, flanked by his 2 fiercely loyal summons, Ya Wuran and Chi Wuran. He tells the duo to look after his mom and patch her up. One summon. Chi Wuran chimes in, reassuring Bai, "Hey, don't sweat it. That loser didn't even lay a scratch on her." Kneeling down beside his mother, Bai breathes a sigh of relief that he made it back in time, but she just gently pats his arm to calm him down. She reminds him that she was holding her own just fine, giving him a warm smile to show she's really all right. While she pats his head, Bai mutters that all right isn't good enough, and that he'll need to gear her up with another magic jade stone for protection. And then, in an instant, they both freeze solid. Their eyes lock in wide-eyed disbelief. Bai stammers, "Wait, did you just talk?" And she, just as stunned, parrots back, "Did I just talk?" The shock on Bai's face melts away, replaced by a massive ear-to-ear grin. He realizes it wasn't the summons telepathy that was her actual voice. His mom covers her mouth with her hand, completely floored, wondering how in the world this is even possible. Turns out, Yao Warren explained, Mom's voice was just on the fritz from some minor nerve damage, which he patched right up. And just like that, a few days zipped by. Bai is perched on a massive tree branch, getting a bird's-eye view of the city, when his summon, Yao Warren, pipes up, asking if he's really dead set on bailing. The big guy lays it on thick, reminding him that his mom and all his buddies are right here. He even throws out the crazy idea of, dropping this whole revenge crusade and just chilling out for a change. But Bai? Nah, he's not having it. He shuts that down real quick, saying his mind's made up and everything's already in motion. He lays out the plan, rent's covered for the apartment, and he's planning to buy the whole place outright once the cash starts rolling in. On top of that, he's hooked his mom up with a brand new magic jade stone, a little uh-oh button for if she ever gets into trouble again, so he can teleport to her side in a flash. For every other moment, he's putting her safety squarely in their massive, capable hands. The 2 absolute units of summons are practically bawling, but they solemnly accept their master's charge. A little later, Bai's just chilling at the dining table, watching the most surreal domestic scene unfold. His mom, happy as a clam, cooking up a storm while his 2 giant summons now sporting aprons clumsily help out. And you know what he's thinking? He's thinking that, sure, his mom knows he's off on some training journey, but she has absolutely no clue he's not the same simple kid she raised anymore. His mind flashes back to the blood-soaked memories of his past life, to the crushing weight of the hatred he's sworn to face. His gaze falls on the invitation, sitting on the table, his golden ticket to the so-called divine nation. That's where the traitor is hiding, and this is his one shot at payback. A flash of the traitor's face, that creepy skull mask, and those stark white dreads, burns in his mind's eye. Bai knows this invitation changes everything. It's his fast pass to the divine nation, way ahead of his original schedule. Later that night, standing in a crowd with his mom, he stares out at the sprawling city lights, his thoughts already on the road ahead. He's got to be real with himself. He has no idea if he'll pull this off, or if he'll even make it back in one piece. This could very well be a one-way trip, but it's a ride he has to take. Just then, his mom gasps, totally breaking his train of thought, exclaiming she almost forgot what time it was. A totally lost Bai asks her what's up. She just grins and tells him it's June 25th, which means it's time for the annual prayer. She reminds him that every year, on the first full moon of the summer solstice, the head honcho from the flower god temple, the great mage herself, always swings by their county, and it hits Bai like a ton of bricks. He completely forgot his mom is a card-carrying member of the flower god sect. He realizes she never once asked for his departure date, and he never worked up the nerve to tell her he's leaving tomorrow. He figures this is the only play and decides to ghost. As he peeks in on his mom praying, he knows a clean exit is the best strategy. He's gotta admit, face-to-face farewells have never been his strong suit. Cut to a hospital room, where Specs is laid up in bed, fresh from a system update. A doc is briefing his parents, letting them know the maintenance check went off without a hitch. He explains it was just a minor debuff removal, but Specs will need a few days of downtime to recover. He also mentions they got super lucky their boy caught the bug before it caused a total system crash. Totally freaking out with relief, Specs' parents are thanking the doctor like he just saved their son from a final boss. His mom, in full-on panic mode, practically screams at Specs not to even breathe too hard. From his bed, Specs is trying to get them to chill, like, guys, the doc literally said it was a tiny side quest. But his mother? Not having any of it. She goes full drama queen, crying that there's no such thing as a small surgery and orders him to stay put. Specs just sighs and looks away. Man, this operation's timing was a total critical failure. He's totally bummed he's gonna miss seeing Bai off on his big expedition to the Divine Nation tomorrow, wondering if he'll ever see his bro again. The very next day, June 26th, the whole student crew mobs the train station, hyped for their field trip to the Divine Nation. Over on the platform, one mom is having a full-on teary meltdown, saying goodbye to her daughter, Chi Yin. She's running through the classic mom checklist. Take care of yourself, call every 5 minutes, and for the love of God, don't grind all night. Then, to top it all off, she plants a big, wet, super embarrassing kiss right on a blushing Chi Yin's cheek. Her dad just facepalms and tries to drag his overly dramatic wife away. He's like, honey, it's only for half a month, not a permanent exile. Chill. All while the train is about to peace out. All the students are lined up on the platform, doing the whole wave goodbye thing to their families. The train station is a total madhouse, with students crammed onto the platform. They're all surrounded by their families who showed up for the big send-off. But then you have Bai, standing way at the end of the platform, looking like the lone wolf protagonist he is. Teacher Hang wanders over with a big ol' smile, asking why he's flying solo and if his folks couldn't make it. Bai, master of evasion, just dodges the question completely. He just stares off into the distance and deadpans, the train's gonna be here any minute. Teacher Huang and Qian, who are eavesdropping nearby, are totally thrown, with the teacher muttering, has he always been this much of a lone ranger? Bai's face darkens as a grim thought crosses his mind, confirming his whole lone wolf persona. As the bullet train roared into the station, he struck a dramatic pose with his back to the platform, thinking about how he'd totally mastered the art of being alone. Then, cue the tragic backstory montage. The reasons for his edgy, solitary vibe. First up, losing the family. A flashback to his mini-me self, looking like he'd just lost a paintball match, frantically trying to wake up his mom while his dad was, let's just say, permanently away from keyboard nearby. Then he remembered the losing friends chapter of his tragic hero manual. He recalled the shock of hearing one buddy got KO'd by lung cancer before even seeing a surgeon, and being told another friend just dipped and wasn't coming back. And of course, losing his master and teammates. Cue the scene of him screaming their names while they got wiped in battle. Classic main character stuff. A vision of his past self appeared, rocking the standard, I've seen some stuff, hardened face, he thought to himself. Yeah, I'm used to people just bouncing on me one after another. His entire life was basically one long sad series of see ya never. He pictured himself as this lonely little dude, haunted by a vortex of his own sob story, the dead parents, the ghosted friends, the fallen comrades. He concluded that he'd long since learned to just calmly accept, losing literally everything. Back in the real world, at the bustling station, Teacher Huang announced the train was here and told the students to get their butts in gear. But not our hero. Bai stood there, a solo act with a perfectly crafted sad expression, lost in his own angsty memories. Just as he was about to board the train of solitude, he heard someone call his name. Totally shocked, he spun around, his whole emo vibe shattered by the sight of his mom, who'd come to see him off. And she brought back up his two middle school pals, Specs, who was currently cruising in a wheelchair, and his other buddy. Bai's friend quickly explained to Teacher Huang that Specs' parents were basically his personal wardens after the surgery, and if Specs hadn't pitched a massive fit about saying goodbye, there was no way he could have orchestrated this hospital escape. Switching gears, Bai put on his concerned friend hat and told Specs he should be resting, but Specs just beamed at him, assuring him he felt totally fine. Then, with a genuine look, he told Bai to take care of himself on the trip. The other friend then handed Bai a goodie bag with clothes and snacks, the official "don't die out there" farewell package. Bai tried to refuse, all like, "Guys, you already got me birthday presents," but Chi Yin just smiled and told him to quit being a dork and just take it. Up next, not to be outdone, Bai's mom busts out her own gift, telling him it's a prayer bracelet from the legendary Flower God Temple. She hypes it up, explaining that these things are seriously overpowered. She carefully slides the green beaded bracelet into her son's hand, saying, "I want you to have a little extra plot armor, just in case." Bai is hit right in the feels, realizing his mom went on a whole side quest just to pray for his safety. He starts to wonder if she's got some kind of mom radar that's sensing his next adventure is going to be a total nightmare. Teacher Huang is waving her arms frantically, basically yelling, "Chop chop, people, the train's leaving." This training arc officially starts now. Bai hops on the train, stealing one last glance at his personal cheering squad on the platform. As he kicks back in his seat with a chill smile, he's just thinking about the major glow-up he and everyone around him have had in the last month. Outside, his mom, Specs, and his buddy are waving like crazy, shouting good luck charms. Bai gives a cool, subtle wave back. He thinks to himself, "Guess I've got people waiting for me to come back and drop the season finale." He clenches his fist around the bracelet, vowing to speed run this whole mission and get back home as soon as possible. Meanwhile, in a totally dramatic fashion, someone's perched on a rooftop overlooking the station. The vice captain watches the train peace out into the distance. He confirms to himself, "Yep, the protagonist is on his way. The loot drop will be delivered to him in the Holy Nation." Turns out, this guy is Liu Zhongzhong, the S-rank guildmaster of the Flower God sect. He mutters, "Are there any other patch notes?" Then he concludes, "Well, it's all up to the main character now." His words echo ominously as Bai just chills on the train, lost in thought. Right next to him, Chi Yin, the designated info dumper, explains that the Ultimate School team took an earlier train to deal with their boat logistics. She's all giddy, pointing out that they're about to hit the Jiang Nation border, with the Holy Nation literally a stone's throw away. Teacher Huang struts down the aisle, ready to give the mission briefing. She starts laying out the plan. "All right, listen up. It takes a whole day to get clearance for the Holy Nation. So we're gonna camp at the border and have a little pop quiz, combat edition." As Chi Yin gives Bai a worried "please don't die" look, Xiling is sitting a few seats back, smirking like he just figured out the ultimate cheat code. He's thinking, "Oh, this guy has no idea what kind of welcome party I've got cooked up for him at this little training exercise." As the high-speed train slows down, the intercom crackles. "Next stop, the Holy Nation. Please mind the level gap." So, Teacher Huang starts her little welcome speech for the students. She's giving them the gods made our world and are our awesome protectors lecture. She lays it out, the god families hold all the power, and the Holy Nation is home base for two of these divine clans. Then she gets all serious, giving the students a stern warning. They better follow the god's rulebook to the letter if they don't want to get into some serious trouble. Bai is just seething through this whole thing, every mention of the gods, making him want to punch something. Teacher Huang then gets down to the nitty-gritty of the entry process. She explains the 3 glorious checkpoints for getting from the Jiang Nation to the Holy Nation. And hey, Good news. They already cleared the first one. That was just the simple requirement of having a special invitation pass from the Divine Guild to even get on the train. The second checkpoint, she continues, is the border station they're pulling into right now. This is where things get fun, she says. Everyone has to get their info registered and go through a full-body security scan. These checks are so ridiculously thorough they take an entire day, meaning they won't officially step into the Holy Nation until tomorrow. So, their first big stop on this epic training journey is waiting in line. How exciting. The group is finally shuffled off to their actual training location. It's just some random wilderness spot along the Jiang Nation's border. On the morning of June 27th, 2105, their so-called combat training officially gets underway. Decked out in the new gear his friend gave him, Bai Yi stands there looking like a whole new man. Qi Yin saunters over with a smile, telling him the new outfit makes him look way more mature. And it's not just her who notices his presence. A couple of older girls from the high school division immediately spot him. One points him out as the legend who dissed the ultimate school team, while the other is just commenting on what a total snack he is. They strut right up to him, and one of the girls confirms, "You're Bai Yi, right?" She adds, "I heard you absolutely demolished the academy's all-time high score." The girls get all flirty, asking if he'll be their big strong man and carry them through the training. Totally unimpressed by their advances, Bai just holds up a hand in a silent, brutal rejection of their offer. But the girls aren't even mad. Nope. They just start giggling. Apparently, his ice-cold dismissal is super cute to them. As Bai walks off, he's already focused on his own goals. He knows the monsters in this starter zone are way too weak to be worth his time anymore. He muses that ever since he hit class, this kind of small fry is just a waste of his energy. Grinding is going to be a real slog unless he finds a new strat. Just then, some slick dude in a suit slides up to the two girls, bragging about how he was the top dog in his class too. He scoffs at the school's practice tests against caged monsters, calling them a total joke. He insists that the beasts out in the real world are a whole different league. Throwing an arm around one of the girls, he winks and says, "This right here, actual combat, is where you separate the pros from the posers." This show-off is identified as Yoongjun, a class stellar warrior still in high school. Instantly starstruck, the girls start begging him to let them tag along during the training. Jungjun just laughs, eating it up and agreeing, while Bai Yi strolls right past the whole cringy scene without a second thought. He's completely unbothered by their little drama. A bit later, Teacher Huang rounds up all the students for one last huddle. With a smile, she reminds them that everyone on this little field trip is supposed to be the school's elite. She runs through the rulebook one last time, listing off the safety precautions. Stick to the designated area. Don't go lone wolfing it. And for crying out loud, know your limits with the monsters. And everyone needs to be back at the campsite by 8 p.m. Before she can even get another word out, the ANSI students, led by Yoongjun of all people, start shouting that they already know the drill. A whole mob of them bolts into the forest, itching to start the hunt. Standing off to the side, Zeeling watches the chaos unfold with a sinister smirk playing on his lips. It's a dead giveaway that his own shady plans are already kicking off. Meanwhile, in the capital of the Holy Nation, Guildmaster Hong Bing is getting the VIP treatment from his underlings as he arrives. He's told the big hunting competition is about to start and that the captain of the Shannon team has been waiting for him. Vice Captain Liu Yung makes a snide remark about the ultimate school team and all the special treatment they get. He points out how they got to ride the Guildmaster's private train and waltz right past all the security checkpoints. With a cigar dangling from his mouth, Hong Bing glances at the young man beside him and tells him to go wait with the team. Turns out, the nervous-looking kid is his own son, Hong Cheng, who quickly agrees. Back in the wild, the training is on. Jung Jun effortlessly flattens some lizard-like monster with a single, glowing haymaker. He strikes a pose over the defeated E-class beast as a fierce red aura flares to life around him. His two senior fangirls are, of course, cheering their heads off for him. They're gushing about how amazing a red-tier, class professional is, but Young Jun just casually plays it cool. Meanwhile, Bai Yi is completely tuning them out, casually checking his own stats on a holographic screen. He glances over his progress, seeing that all three of his classes, Cloud Element Mage, Nuclear Warrior, and Flower Element Summoner, have finally hit class. Big whoop. He's been stuck at this plateau for over 10 agonizing days. Bai Yi knows that if he wants to get any real experience points, he needs to hunt monsters way stronger than him. Too bad the mobs in this zone are scattered and pathetically low level. They're barely worth any XP, like stepping on ants. Smacking down creatures weaker than him gives practically zero rewards, making this grind an absolute snooze fest. Just then, the scenery finally gets a little interesting. The oh-so-confident Jung Jun gets absolutely launched by a giant purple spider thing, which the system flags as a D-class flower warrior. He and the two girls are freaking out, suddenly realizing this thing is way out of their league. Banged up and totally losing his cool, Jang Jun collapses on the ground, screaming for someone to help him with the poison. He's wailing that it's a full-powered, unsealed D-class monster from the wilderness. After effortlessly trashing the rest of the crew, the massive spider beast pivots and makes a beeline straight for Bai. While the other students shriek a warning, Bai just stands there, casually summoning his glowing green blade. He's totally ready to face the music. With a single, almost lazy swing of his sword, Bai one-shots the giant D-class spider that had the other students running for their lives. A series of dings confirms the kill, rewarding him with a pittance of experience and a poisonous spider leg. Jang Jun and the two upperclassmen just gawk, their jaws on the floor, completely stunned by his insane power. Bai, on the other hand, couldn't look more bored. He mutters to himself that drops from these trash mobs are just useless inventory clutter. It gets him thinking about how the Divine Guild hogs all the high-level monster zones, which is exactly why the jump from class to B class is such a massive wall. With a flick of his wrist, he just chucks the D-class item away like it's garbage. The silver-haired girl is absolutely flabbergasted that he'd just toss a D-class item, but Bai just gives her a dismissive little wave, like, please. He recalls from his past life that there were some high-grade magic crystals stashed near the Holy Nation's border. So, he figures it's time to stop wasting his breath and search deeper in the forest for some actual decent materials. Later that evening, sometime before 8 p.m., Bai finds himself deep in the murky woods. He's already pocketed several magic crystals, but his gut tells him something's off. He knows these things are formed from super concentrated energy. You typically find these babies in demon caves or anywhere with a high monster spawn rate. He picks one up for a closer look and realizes its mana has been completely juiced, like something sucked it dry. A system notification pops up, helpfully labeling it a withered magic crystal. Thanks, Captain Obvious. He glances around and, yup, the surrounding trees are looking just as dead and drained, like they've been on the wrong end of a demonic smoothie straw. He's scratching his head, wondering what kind of demon has a life drain ability this OP. Seriously, could a measly D-class monster even pull this off? His little investigation hits a literal wall, a massive cliff with a dramatic waterfall. Classic level design. And what do you know? Down at the base of the waterfall, a shiny object catches his eye. Ooh. Loot? Turns out it's a busted container, oozing some sketchy-looking green goo. Naturally, he crouches down to get a better look. He's like, what in the world is this stuff? Meanwhile, back at camp, the clock hits 8 p.m., and it's barbecue time. The MVP, Teacher Hang, is presiding over a massive bonfire, grilling up some giant monster drumsticks for the starving students. The kids are totally losing it. Amazed that their teacher single-handedly farmed so many D-class mobs, Teacher Hang just flashes a grin and explains that this is all part of the experience. You know, a wilderness survival simulation, and scrounging for food is, like, a key quest objective. She cheekily points out that they were all so busy fighting that nobody even thought about dinner. A couple of wiped-out students grumble about the field trip, not including a meal plan, eyeing a roasted tentacle like it might just grow back and slap them. Is this thing even edible? Meanwhile, Teacher Hang and Chi are just chilling by the fire, munching on their questionable monster kebabs. Teacher Huang mentions that Bee and Zelling are still out on their little forest adventure and tells everyone to save him a leg or a tentacle. Xian, ever the suck-up, starts showering her teacher with compliments, saying she totally pegged Teacher Huang as a book-smart-only type. So her combat prowess was a real plot twist. Teacher Huang gets a bit nostalgic and says that before she started grading papers, her big dream was to join the top-tier Divine Guild, or maybe become a priestess. She lets out a little sigh, admitting she never had the stats to even apply. Then she leans in and confesses to Qian that this is actually her first ever trip to the Holy Nation. She gives a heartfelt thanks to Qi and the rest of the crew, explaining that it's all thanks to their and Bai Yi's S-rank performance that she finally gets to complete her pilgrimage to the Holy Land she's been fangirling over her whole life. Just as Qi is about to say something sweet, two glowing red eyes pop up in the dark behind her. Uh-oh, boss monster alert. Teacher Huang's face goes from 0 to 100 real quick. Without a second thought, she yeets Qi out of the danger zone. and just in time, as a massive, sharp green leg erupts from the shadows, turning Teacher Hang into a human shish kebab. Now, wearing a fresh coat of her teacher's insides, a freaked-out Chien just shrieks her name. The rest of the students join the scream fest, having zero clue what kind of thing just went kebab on their teacher. Meanwhile, our boy Bai is pulling a full-on Naruto run through the spooky forest. He's on a mission, knowing he's got to book it and tell everyone to get the heck out of Dodge. The light bulb finally goes off. That busted Zung industrial container he found might be the problem. Back at Camp Bloodbath, the recently punctured teacher Huang is clutching the giant spike currently lodged in her torso. Using the last of her mana, she gives the classic final mission: run, you idiots, and find the nearest guild for help. Then, for a dramatic reveal, she yanks the leg out of her own chest, showing off their party crasher. A massive, absolutely terrifying bug thing with cliché glowing red eyes is looming over their little campfire party. It roars that all the nutrients, aka the students, are now on its menu. It dawns on the students with absolute horror that they're staring down a B-class demon. A wild system notification appears, helpfully identifying the creature as a B-class flower warrior, aka the corpse spider. The pop-up mentions it's smart, has a risk level of "you're probably gonna die," and is a fresh escapee from the Zhang Industrial Laboratory. The warning basically says that any player who spots this particular monster should immediately nope out of there and spam the Divine Guild's emergency hotline.